Chapter 116. The boy's calmness did not seem to be an act. He was truly not afraid. This sort of expression was not rare on an old man, but it was definitely not normal for a boy to be so calm. He looked at Su Ming. His eyes did not sparkle or waver, but when he looked at Su Ming, it was as if he was scanning Su Ming's body. It was as if he was trying to find out Su Ming's origins from the smallest details. Su Ming sat there with his entire body covered by a bee skin robe. The boy's actions after he woke up made him admire him, but it was impossible for the boy to find out anything from him. The injuries on your body have been there for many years. Su Ming did not answer the boy's question. Instead, he spoke slowly with a hoarse voice. The boy's expression did not change. He looked at Su Ming and did not speak. He knew that if he spoke too much, he would make a mistake. He might as well see what the person who kidnapped him wanted. You must have been injured by a powerful berserker not long after you were born. Su Ming continued speaking unhurriedly. The boy was shocked, but his expression did not change. Go and feel the injuries in your body and see if there are any changes. Su Ming's words were calm. Once he finished speaking, he closed his eyes. The boy was momentarily stunned. He cast a wary glance at Su Ming. Then, after a moment of hesitation, he closed his eyes and circulated the qi in his body. He had not noticed it when he woke up, but now that he started circulating his qi, he opened his eyes. During that instant just now, he could clearly feel that the injuries in his body had become slightly better. Even though he was shocked, he forced himself to remain calm. He knew that his injuries were caused by someone planting an art on him when he was 5 years old. That person had purposely left him injured, but not killed him to delay his father's training, causing his father to use up a large amount of qi every once in a while to prolong his life. In fact, this injury was incredibly insidious. Over the years, he had taken a large amount of herbs, but he could only maintain his condition. He could not heal it. Even the tribe leader's elder and the others could not do anything about it. They had once said that if he wanted to heal it, the only way was to find the person who had planted the berserker art in him all those years ago and kill him so that the berserker art would turn into a rootless plant. But now, the injuries in his body had actually improved a little. This was something he had never expected. His breathing quickened, and he hurriedly lowered his head to check the injuries in his body again to hide the light in his eyes. He had prayed to the heavens countless times for him to recover. He didn't want to be a burden to his father, but after all these years, when he looked at his father's gradually aging face, he wanted to die. If it wasn't for the fact that he still had some attachments, he would have already bid farewell to his father. This time, the people of the tribe came to the rainforest to collect medicine for the tribe. He followed, not to heal himself, but to prove that he was also a member of the tribe. But the protection of his clansmen along the way made him sigh inwardly. At that moment, as he lowered his head, a thought appeared in his heart. When he lifted his head, he no longer hid his thoughts. Instead, he stared at Su Ming with a dumbfounded expression. Excitement and a desire to live appeared on his face. You? The young man took a deep breath, and his voice trembled slightly. Your internal injuries are quite severe. I can't make you recover completely, but I can still make you slightly better. Su Ming opened his eyes and looked at the young man with his eyes hidden under his robes. It was as if he could see through the young man's heart. When Su Ming looked at the young man with that gaze, he instantly felt as if he had been seen through. He had always been intelligent since he was young. The excitement and desire he had shown previously were all on purpose. When he heard Su Ming's words, he let out a sigh of relief in his heart. If Su Ming's words had been firm, he would not have believed him. He knew his own injuries very well. What do you want? The young man fell silent for a moment before his expression returned to normal. He hid away his nervousness and looked at Su Ming before he asked softly, "What is this place?" Su Ming did not waste his time on this. He asked the question straight away. The information he wanted to obtain would definitely be seen through by others, so there was no need for him to hide it. "This is Guanghan Forest," the young man said softly, but a thought appeared in his head. He continued speaking. "Guanghan Forest is very big. This place is just a part of it. If you go deeper into the forest, you'll find an even bigger rainforest beyond Han Mountain. I don't know the specifics of how far it is. I only know that if you walk half a month from the direction I came from, you'll reach Han Mountain City. This city is built with mountains, and since it's located on the path to the great tribe of Freezing Sky, it's incredibly prosperous. The young man spoke in detail. Even if he had doubts in his heart, he did not show them. The great tribe of Freezing Sky. Su Ming frowned and sighed. The furthest place he had been to since he was young was Windstream Tribe. He had never heard of any other tribes. The great tribe of Freezing Sky is one of the two big tribes in the land of South Morning. Han Mountain City is located to the south of the land of South Morning. The teenager cast Su Ming a glance and began explaining. His suspicions towards this person grew stronger, and he had a vague feeling that Su Ming was not from this place. This guess caused his hostility towards Su Ming to decrease by a large margin. What he was most worried about was that Su Ming was an enemy of his tribe. Now that he had found some clues, he felt much more at ease. Which tribe does Han Mountain City belong to? Su Ming's tone remained the same. If it was not because he wanted to make the young man feel at ease so that he could get more information out of him, he would not have let the young man see the clues. Su Ming's words made the young man feel even more at ease, and a smile appeared on his face. Han Mountain City doesn't belong to one tribe, but to 3 tribes. They're Puqiang Tribe, Colors Good Tribe, and Tranquil Tribe. It's controlled by these 3 tribes. I'm a member of Puqiang Tribe. If you have a berserker art that can heal my injuries, why don't you join Puqiang Tribe and become a guest? Puqiang Tribe is very respectful towards guests. If you agree, you'll definitely have a place to rest, and you'll also be able to understand this place better. If you're lucky, you might even obtain the right to join Freezing Sky Clan. When a young man spoke up to this point, he seemed to be casually sizing up Su Ming's body. It's too difficult to join this clan. Su Ming's expression was calm. He saw all the young man's actions, and with just one glance, he could see through the young man's thoughts. Compared to him, the young man before him was just a lost Su. The young man touched his nose and smiled sheepishly. You're right, senior. But it may be difficult to join Freezing Sky Clan, but it's not impossible. 10 years ago, someone really passed the test in Han Mountain City and became a berserker of Freezing Sky Clan. Su Ming fell into a moment of pensive silence before he stood up. He could tell that besides his own identity, the rest of what the young man said was mostly true. This information was not a secret, and there was no need for the young man to lie. Once he organized all the information in his head, Su Ming had a general idea of this place. This was a place that was completely different from the place he was in. In truth, he had already noticed this when he looked at the sky at night. It was familiar, but also a little unfamiliar. Su Ming did not look at the young man when he stood up. He did not even ask for his name. Even if the young man had said that he belonged to Puqiang Tribe, he would not have asked. Besides, Su Ming did not believe the young man's claim that he belonged to a tribe. Compared to him, the young man might be smart, but he was still a little naive. He was like a fledgling that had never experienced any storms. When Su Ming looked at him, he felt as if he could see his past self. When Su Ming walked into the rainforest, the young man was completely stunned. He had already thought of a lot of things that would happen after this. He had even prepared a few words for himself. His final goal was to ensure his own safety. Yet now, all his preparations were useless as Su Ming casually walked into the distance. He's really just asking for some information about the area. This person is strange, but he shouldn't have any ill intentions. The young man touched his mouth. In truth, when he woke up, he had already noticed that there was an astringent taste in his mouth. He must have eaten something. When he saw that his injuries had improved slightly, and when he saw Su Ming leaving without a word, the young man was finally certain that the person before him did not have any ill intentions towards him. If he wanted to harm me, then he wouldn't have needed to heal me. Under torture, I would have chosen to tell him things that are not related to the tribe's secrets, but he didn't do that. Instead, he healed me first. He also lured out the black spike when he kidnapped me. By the looks of it now, he purposely chose that beast. That's why it's only equivalent to a berserker at the 7th level of the blood solidification realm. Big Brother Meng can deal with it, and he won't let any of our tribe members die. Hundreds of thoughts flashed through the young man's head. When he saw that Su Ming was about to disappear, He quickly got up and ran. "Senior, please wait." His voice traveled through the rainforest, but did not make Su Ming stop. He disappeared from the young man's sight and disappeared into the distance. The young man chased after him for a while, but did not find anything. A look of regret appeared on his face. "Ah, how could that person leave so quickly? I was too cautious and missed the chance to heal myself." The more the young man thought about it, the more regret he felt. Hesitation appeared on his face, as if he was having a hard time making up his mind. At that moment, there were whooshing sounds coming from the rainforest. The young man did not move. He could feel that his tribe members were closing in on him. Before long, the young man at the 7th level of the blood solidification realm rushed out. Behind him were his tribe members. They were not dead. When they saw that the young man was safe, they let out a sigh of relief. The young man called on Meng approached him and asked in a low voice, but the young man shook his head. He did not speak, neither did he tell them about his conversation with Su Ming. He had his own thoughts in his heart, and he no longer hesitated. Instead, he made up his mind. Su Ming walked quietly in the rainforest. He had already taken off his robes. There was a dazed look on his face as he walked towards the mountain range before him. The land of South Morning. Han Mountain City. The great tribe of Freezing Sky. Freezing Sky Clan. Su Ming did not know what Freezing Sky Clan was, but based on the young man's words and expression, he had a vague understanding. Freezing Sky Clan should be a different existence from the tribes. This is the land of South Morning. How far is it from my home? Su Ming sighed softly. He only remembered the man in black saying that Dark Mountain was part of the alliance of the Western region, and Windstream tribe was Meow Man's weakest tribe. My recommendation has fallen to the 6th place. Please recommend me. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 117. 2 months had passed since he came into contact with the berserkers from the tribe. Su Ming still chose to stay and create South Asunder every day so that his injuries would slowly recover. At this moment, he was sitting cross-legged in the cave. After swallowing South Asunder, he was meditating silently. Out of the 243 blood veins on his body, only 10 remained dim. The rest were already bursting with life. During the past year, the large amount of South Asunder had finally allowed his serious injuries and hidden injuries to gradually recover. During the past year, he would always think about the tribe, about the elder, about Xiao Hong, about Bai Ling, and about Lei Chun. Su Ming did not know how the tribe was doing. He did not know whether Xiao Hong was still playing happily in Dark Mountain. He did not know whether Bai Ling was still waiting for him after he did not fulfill his promise. Every single time he thought about it, Su Ming's heart would clench in pain. He was alone in an unfamiliar land. As he looked at the moon in the sky, he missed his home. He missed his elder, who he did not want to believe would die. He missed everything that was familiar to him. Yet he did not have any clues about the exact location of his home. The only thing he knew was that it was in the alliance of the Western region, where Meow Man's tribe was located. However, the alliance of the Western region and the land of South Morning were very far apart. He did not know the exact route. I need a map to the alliance of the Western region. Besides, only when I become stronger can I have the strength to find my home. Only when I become stronger can I make the people the man in black robes pay the price. During the past year, Su Ming had been thinking about the battle between the tribe and Black Mountain tribe. There were many things he had overlooked during the battle, and all of them pointed towards the man in black robes. Su Ming opened his eyes and woke up from his meditative state. He looked at the darkness around him and felt a sense of loneliness. He had been experiencing this feeling for more than a year, but he still had not learned how to get used to it. After a long time, Su Ming walked out of the cave quietly. He stood outside the crack and looked at the moon in the sky. It was quiet all around him. He sat by the side and breathed in the slightly damp air. He brought out a bone, sewn the size of a fist from his bosom, and gently caressed its surface. He did not know how much time had passed before a song that no one but Su Ming could hear echoed in the air. There was a hint of sadness in the song, and it did not disappear even after a long time had passed. Su Ming did not know how to play undulating notes. There were some cracks on the bones, son, and it could not produce any sound. It was already damaged. That song was not played out, but existed within Su Ming's heart. He held the bones Sun in his hands and closed his eyes, and he could hear the song in his heart. This was the only sound that could accompany him in this place. He listened to the Sun song that seemed to really exist in his ears. It was as if he could find a familiarity that was no longer unfamiliar. Every time he felt lonely, he would think of the beautiful past. Whenever he was lonely, he would recall the happiness of the past. After a long while, when a moon in the sky was at its brightest, Su Ming closed his eyes and sat there. Moonlight shone on his body, and gradually, shadows that seemed to be formed by moonlight floated out of his body and surrounded him. Those shadows were the wings of the moon. The wings of the moon were the elders of the Fire Berserker tribe, who cast a great divine ability in exchange for eternal life. They might have been changed by the god of berserkers using the eternal creation art and turned into bodies that were neither human nor beast, and they had also been through the passage of time. The power of their divine ability had greatly diminished, causing a flaw to appear in their eternal life. However, the battle against Baitu and the man in black robes was not enough to kill them. Only their bodies were destroyed. Their souls still surrounded Su Ming, hidden within his body. They only appeared under the moonlight. Unless they ran into those who practiced the Fire Berserker arts, no one would be able to see their existence. This was something Su Ming did not have a definite answer to. He only understood it through the connection he had with the souls of the wings of the moon. This was Su Ming's greatest support. It was also the reason why he did not care whether the boy he asked about 2 months ago would tell anyone about his existence. He did not want to kill for no reason, but if anyone came looking for trouble with him, then they would have to be prepared to die. When the moon in the sky gradually disappeared and the light of the sun rose from the horizon, faint shouts came from the rainforest at the foot of the mountain. Senior, 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 I was wrong. Senior. Su Ming's face was calm. He had heard that voice almost every once in a while during the past 2 months. The rainforest was huge, and there were many mountains. Searching for a person might not be like searching for a needle in a haystack, but it was not that far off. That voice belonged to the boy. 2 months ago, when Su Ming left, he had already predicted what would happen next. The boy would have to choose between telling him or not telling him. If he told him, then perhaps the tribe would pay attention to him and powerful berserkers would come to him. However, Guanghan Forest was huge. It was not easy to find a person. If Su Ming wanted to avoid them, it would be even more difficult for him to find them. More importantly, these people needed his help. With the boy's intelligence, not only would he not be able to get anything out of it, he would also make Su Ming unhappy. The boy did not disappoint Su Ming. During the past 2 months, he came to the rainforest alone many times to call out to Su Ming. Su Ming listened to the shouts coming from the distance and ignored them. He got up and returned to the cave to continue creating South Asunder and to heal his injuries. A few days later, the voice slowly disappeared. Half a month later, when there were only 9 blood veins left on Su Ming's body, he heard that faint voice coming from the rainforest once again. Senior, Senior. The voice continued for 2 days and was still going on. Su Ming opened his eyes from his meditative state, and a pensive look appeared on his face. I won't make the same mistake twice. Su Ming seemed to have remembered something and walked out of the cave. Once he changed into a bee skin robe, he charged into the rainforest. In the rainforest, Fong Mu's face was still filled with regret, but there was also caution and caution. He held a black bone blade in his hand. The blade let out a chilling air. It was an item he used to protect himself. After all, he had left the tribe alone to come here. It was a very dangerous thing to do. If he ran into enemies, then the blade would be useful. As he charged through the rainforest, he shouted the words he had been repeating for the past few days. Senior, Senior. After a long while, he panted harshly and leaned against a big tree beside him. There was a helpless look on his face. Could it be that the strange person has left? Or else he would have heard my shouts after 3 months. Ah, if he hasn't left, then it means that he doesn't want to see me. Fong Mu let out a long sigh. There was a bitter look on his face. He looked around and gritted his teeth as he continued moving forward. Senior, Are you there or not? When he saw that the sun was about to set and the shadow of the moon appeared in the sky, Fong Mu shouted towards the sky once again with a dejected look on his face. I'm here. Right after Fong Mu finished speaking, a cold voice came from behind him. Those words appeared too suddenly, causing Fong Mu to jump in fright. He leaped forward and turned around with a vigilant look on his face. The blade in his hand was already raised, and when he saw the figure standing on the branch of a large tree behind him, a look of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. Senior, I've been looking for you for so long. It's been 3 months. Fong Mu quickly put away the bone blade and looked at Su Ming, who was covered by the bee skin, excitedly. He took a few brisk steps forward and bowed towards Su Ming. Senior, please save me. I am Fong Mu. I hid the truth from you before, but in truth, I am a tribe member of Tranquil East Tribe. My father is the tribe leader of Tranquil East Tribe. If you can heal my injuries, then my father and I will definitely repay you handsomely. This blade is my apology for hiding the truth from you. Please accept it. The boy called Fong Mu's face was filled with sincerity. Once he bowed towards Su Ming, he quickly handed over the black bone blade with both hands. The bone blade shone with a black light and exuded a ghastly presence. It was clear that it was not an ordinary item, but an imitation berserker vessel similar to blood scales. This item was incredibly valuable to a small tribe. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. Based on the boy's gift of the blade, it was not difficult for him to guess that the 3 tribes who controlled Han Mountain City were definitely middle-sized tribes and definitely not small tribes. Su Ming walked towards Fong Mu. Once he cast a glance at Fong Mu, he took the black bone blade. He did not use the power of his chi. Instead, he used the invisible souls of the wings of the moon in his body. Immediately, the black light on the bone blade shone brightly. The freezing aura on the blade disappeared in an instant. The entire bone blade turned red in an instant, as if it was burning. A wave of heat spread out from it. It made the trees around them look as if they were burning and about to dry up. The heat crashed into Fong Mu's face, causing him to retreat. Shock appeared on his face, and his heart pounded against his chest. He could not tell Su Ming's level of cultivation, but he knew that even the powerful berserkers in his tribe who were in the same generation as him would not be able to make the blade exude such power. Only someone like his father had shown a similar shocking effect when he gave the blade to him in the past. But it was not heat, it was ice. Could it be that he's in the transcendence realm? Fong Mu's mouth was dry. He was thankful that he did not tell anyone about this and came alone, or else if he made this person unhappy, then the consequences would be dire. Fong Mu could not see Su Ming's expression, which made him even more mysterious. At that moment, Su Ming lifted his left hand, and with lightning speed, he pushed the 2 medicinal pills into Fong Mu's mouth before he could even see them clearly. With a slight movement of his chi, the 2 medicinal pills dissolved, causing Fong Mu to feel heat flowing into his body before he could even feel the shape of the pills. I'll give you 15 breaths to remember these herbs. Next time you come, bring 1,000 of them in exchange for healing items. Also, I don't like people spying on me. This is the only time. Su Ming's words were calm, but there was a hint of hoarseness and gloom in his voice. He swung the bone blade in his right hand, and immediately, the bark of a big tree beside him fell off. The shape of an herb appeared on its surface. That was the herb Su Ming lacked to create mountain spirit, cloud gauze grass. Then, he no longer bothered with Fong Mu. Instead, he stood up and took a step into the air. The invisible soles of the wings of the moon were under his feet. Su Ming stepped on the soles of the wings of the moon and walked on air. No one could see the soles of the wings of the moon under his feet. To Fong Mu, Su Ming seemed to have walked into the sky out of thin air. This made him widen his eyes and take a sharp breath. Is he really in the transcendence realm? After a long while, he came back to his senses, but he soon remembered the second half of Su Ming's words before he left. He was stunned for a moment, then immediately looked around. He saw a strong person gradually walking out of the rainforest. Father! Fong Mu rubbed his eyes. He was shocked. The man was wearing a blue robe. He walked to Fong Mu's side with a serious look on his face. He looked in the direction where Su Ming left and frowned. "Are your injuries better?" he asked in a low voice. Fong Mu was anxious. He quickly checked the condition of his injuries and found that they were getting better. He immediately nodded his head. "Father, have you been following me? That senior noticed you? Is he really in the transcendence realm?" "It doesn't seem like it. There's chi in his body." The man frowned. Before he could finish speaking, the picture of the cloud gauze grass on the tree trunk slowly turned into dust and scattered away. This was the strength of Su Ming's fine control. He could already control every single bit of chi in his body in an incredibly exquisite manner. It's exactly 15 breaths. This is fine control in the transcendence realm. The man's pupil shrank. "It's over. It's over. I haven't memorized the herb's appearance yet." Fong Mu immediately became anxious. "That's cloud gauze grass. I'll help you get it. Remember to be respectful towards this person. Don't offend him with your words. When you see him, treat him as if you're meeting a senior in the tribe. He might be your serendipity." The man took a deep breath. He may still have his doubts, but he was now almost certain that Su Ming was right. He turned his head around and gave Su Ming a stern warning. "Su Ming is grown up. This chapter has 3,600 words. You're a kind person. Please vote for me. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation." Chapter 118. At that moment, Su Ming was far away from Fong Mu and was charging through the rainforest. His expression was as calm as ever, and not a single hint of emotion could be detected on his face. However, he was incredibly cautious in his heart. If there was even the slightest movement around him, he would immediately notice it. In truth, he did not notice Fong Mu's father following him. His words and actions were all to prevent any trouble from happening. He had run into something similar when he was in Dark Mountain. He only saw Si Kong. He did not expect that a member of his tribe with such status would be able to chase after him under the watchful eyes of the powerful berserkers after he caused such a huge commotion. After the incident, the elder pointed him out and reminded him of the things he had overlooked. But that was in Dark Mountain. With the elder watching over him, the danger was not great. Yet now, in this unfamiliar environment, without the elder's protection, he had to rely on himself. He could not afford to make any mistakes. He may not have noticed anyone following behind Fong Mu, but there were many suspicious points. With Su Ming's intelligence, a few months was enough for him to analyze everything thoroughly. For a youth at the 5th level of blood condensation who was injured, how could he come to this rainforest by himself in just a few months' time? Furthermore, he had been completely safe each time. Even if he wanted to do this, his family would definitely have sensed it and secretly followed him. That was understandable. Also, the boy's injuries had improved slightly, and he had been kidnapped by Su Ming. Even if the boy did not say anything, the tribe members who had followed him into the rainforest would have reported it. All these clues made it easy for Su Ming to guess that there was someone following Fong Mu, and that person's goal was to find him. It was because of this that Su Ming decided to wait for a few months before moving forward at a moderate pace. The boy's gift of the blade and the extraordinary nature of the blade made Su Ming even more certain that Tranquil tribe was not a small tribe, but a middle-sized tribe. The boy's high status in this tribe made it impossible for him to come alone. Su Ming was certain that there was someone observing him from afar. The reason why they did not act rashly was because when Su Ming took the blade, he used the souls of the wings of the moon to activate the power of fire, giving others the illusion that he had transcended. Besides, when he stepped on the souls of the wings of the moon, he used fine control to leave a mark on the tree and said that he had 15 breaths. His actions would be seen as a warning. What Su Ming wanted was precisely this sort of warning that would make people hesitate. After all, the prerequisite for all of this was for the youth's injuries to gradually recover. Under this premise, he would have the complete initiative. Coupled with his unpredictable cultivation, he would be able to increase the youth's safety to a sufficient degree. Su Ming's expression was calm. He did not immediately return to the cave. Instead, he walked around the area a few times and only when the sky turned completely dark and the moon hung high in the sky did he return to the cave after he was certain that no one was following him. Su Ming sat down cross-legged in the cave and swung his right hand forward. Immediately, some invisible souls of the wings of the moon spread out and surrounded the entrance of the cave. During the past year, he had been using this method to prevent any accidents from happening. If everything goes smoothly, it will soon be time for me to leave this place. A contemplative look appeared in Su Ming's eyes as he sat there. Once he thought about his previous actions carefully, he immersed himself in the circulation of his qi. Gradually, a blood-red light shone on his body. This sort of training and healing for a long period of time was boring, and not everyone could endure it. However, Su Ming had gradually gotten used to this sort of life during the past year or so. He was used to being alone in the quiet cave and healing his wounds without a single word. He continued creating South Asunder and continued taking medicinal pills to heal his injuries, causing the injuries and hidden injuries in his body to slowly recover as time passed by. A month later, a voice calling out to the senior appeared once again in the rainforest. This time, Su Ming also made the person wait for a few days before he left quietly one night. Once he healed Fong Mu's injuries, he took back the cloud gauze grass he needed, and at the same time, he asked for the amount of another herb. Fong Mu's expression was incredibly respectful. He fulfilled almost all of Su Ming's requests, and even told Su Ming many of the things that were not considered secrets of the three tribes, allowing Su Ming to have a more complete understanding of them, including the unique berserker arts of the three tribes. After this, the two of them formed a foundation for their trade. There may be a lot of herbs in the rainforest, but if they were used to create medicinal pills, it would usually be difficult to make all of them. However, with Fong Mu, this problem was solved. Su Ming's speed in creating medicinal pills also slowly increased. Fong Mu even managed to get quite a lot of night glitter branch from Han Mountain City with his father's tacit consent, and gave it to Su Ming as a form of filial piety. The number of times he came to the rainforest also increased. Sometimes he would even bring a lot of daily necessities, such as clothes that looked extraordinary. Fong Mu's father was the one who thought of these clothes and reminded Fong Mu to prepare them. He also took into consideration Su Ming's habit of covering his face with a bee skin robe. That was why most of these clothes were the same. There were 3 sets in total. The sackcloth clothes could not compare to them. Senior Mo, I spent a lot of effort to order these clothes from Han Mountain City. Only the elder, the tribe leader, and a few other people in the tribe have them. Fong Mu's flattery did indeed make Su Ming's impression of him increase slightly. However, with Su Ming's cautiousness, he still appeared at random times every time Fong Mu came to look for him. He also never told Fong Mu where he lived. Another half a year passed by in this manner. Su Ming had stayed in the rainforest for 2 whole years. His injuries had completely recovered a month ago. The moment 243 blood veins manifested, he immediately possessed the power of a 7th-level berserker in the blood solidification realm. Once Su Ming obtained the complete set of herbs, he created quite a lot of mountain spirit. When he ate them, his level of cultivation also started increasing at a steady rate once he recovered. Now that he had enough medicinal pills, Su Ming fell into deep thought in the cave in the mountain crack. There were 2 types of medicinal pills in his hands, Mountain Spirit and South Asunder. There were quite a lot of them. There were about a dozen pills in each of them. Su Ming looked at the medicinal pills in his hands and fell into a moment of silence. Then, a determined look appeared on his face. I should go and see what else will appear once I open the second door. Su Ming put away the medicinal pills and touched the black stone on his neck that had accompanied him all the way to this place. The mysterious black stone had given Su Ming several types of medicinal pills that allowed his injuries to recover and his level of cultivation to increase. Now he had all the medicinal pills he needed to open the second door. Su Ming closed his eyes and used the method he used to enter the strange dimension. In the relatively safe cave in the crack, Su Ming's entire body instantly shone with a black light. The black light turned into a dark light and gradually enveloped his entire body. With a violent flash, it disappeared without a trace. Even Su Ming's body disappeared. It was still the same world that was shrouded in fog. Su Ming soon got used to the darkness. He charged forward in the fog, and gradually, he saw the familiar mountain and the tunnel at the foot of the mountain. As he looked at the mountain, Su Ming did not make a sound and walked into the tunnel. The pictures around him were still the same. There were no changes. He went through the first door, and before long, he arrived at the second door. Using the method he used to open the first door, Su Ming took a few steps forward and brought out South Asunder and Mountain Spirit from his bosom. He placed them into the small holes on the door. Once all the medicinal pills were placed into the holes, Su Ming took a few steps back and focused his attention on the door. All the small holes on the door gradually let out a strong light. As the light spread out, loud rumbling sounds reverberated in the area, turning into a large amount of echoes. Very soon, the second door slowly opened backwards. There was a small crack on the door, but it gradually opened completely. With a loud bang, the tunnel behind the door was revealed. There was calmness in Su Ming's eyes. He did not act recklessly. Instead, he waited until the door was completely open before he looked inside. The tunnel was slightly red. The walls around him also shone with a red light. It was quiet. After waiting for a while, Su Ming lifted his feet and slowly walked into the tunnel. He did not rush in immediately, but instead looked at the carvings on the walls around him. There were still carvings of people creating medicinal pills. When Su Ming opened the first door, he noticed that the carvings on the walls seemed to be teaching him the skills of creating medicinal pills. If he could master it, it would be of great help to creating medicinal pills. He walked forward at a moderate pace and memorized the pictures on the carvings. He did not know how much time had passed, but when the pictures on the carvings were done, a small chamber appeared before him. The third door was within the chamber. There was only one picture of a medicinal pill on the door. Su Ming had seen most of the herbs required to create the pill before. His eyes sparkled, and he looked at the small holes under the picture of the medicinal pill. Su Ming, who had already experienced it twice, had already guessed that the number of medicinal pills required to open the doors in the strange earth mirror represented the difficulty of creating these medicinal pills through the creation of the 3 medicinal pills. The higher the number, the easier it would be. As he looked at it, Su Ming frowned. There were only 2 small holes under the picture of the medicinal pill. This pill might be the most difficult to create besides the welcoming of deities. Su Ming frowned and walked forward. He lifted his right hand and pressed it on the door. At that moment, the familiar swelling pain in his head appeared once again. As the door shone brightly, the pictures of Su Ming creating the medicinal pill kept appearing in his head. After a long while, Su Ming's right hand trembled. It was as if he was bounced back by the force of the land. He took a few steps back and lifted his head. His eyes were filled with shock. Spirit plunder. Su Ming sucked in a sharp breath. This time, besides the method to create the pill and its name, there was also a description of the pill's effects in his head. Seize an illusory spirit and put it into this pill. If it disintegrates, it can injure others. If it gathers, it can nourish the soul. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. Once he memorized the herbs needed to create spirit plunder, he closed his eyes and a complicated look appeared on his face. The herbs needed to refine this powder are I don't need a normal cauldron either. I need to use the body of a person who is about to die as a cauldron. Once I plant the herbs in the cauldron, I can then create it. I don't need to use normal fire to create it either. I need to gather the aura of corpses and summon lightning from the sky to create it. I can also avoid the strange phenomenon that will happen once the medicinal pill is created. Su Ming fell silent for a moment and looked deeply at the stone door before he turned around and walked out. It may be difficult to create and the success rate isn't high, but once this pill is created, its power. The description of the pill appeared in Su Ming's head. Seize an illusory spirit. This illusory spirit should be talking about the things created by berserker marks, like the blood bear of the tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe and Shan Hen's blade. I don't think anyone below the Transcendence realm will be able to fight against it. Even those in the Transcendence realm won't be able to kill it. This isn't even a medicinal pill. Su Ming's eyes flashed, and he walked out. Within the crack in the depths of the rainforest, a dark light shone, and Su Ming's body slowly appeared. He sat there and touched the black stone on his neck as he fell into deep thought. I need 19 herbs in total. I know most of them. They exist in the picture book the Elder gave me. There's only one that I'm unfamiliar with. But that's not the main point. The main point is that I don't need to create 3 out of the 19 herbs. I need to plant the bones of powerful wild beasts and let them grow. According to the information I received, powerful wild beasts are equivalent to the bones of powerful berserkers in the Transcendence realm. If you like this work, please comment and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 119. It's about time for me to go to Han Mountain City. Early in the morning, Su Ming woke up from his meditative state. The complicated emotions from the night before still lingered on his face. He had already made his decision. He tidied up the medicinal pills on his body and looked around the cave. He had stayed in this place for 2 years. He did not intend to not return. He was already familiar with this place. It was a good place for training. Fong Mu's information about the area around here should be 90% true, but I'll have to verify it myself, especially Puqian tribe. Besides, Han Mountain City is the only way to get to the great tribe of Freezing Sky in the land of South Morning. There might be a map to the alliance of the western region there. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He walked out of the crack in the cave and stood outside. The wind brought with it moisture. It was now the rainy season he had encountered 2 years ago. He touched the torn bag in his bosom. There were no changes to this item during these 2 years. The cracks in the dimension inside did not spread out either. This made Su Ming feel much more at ease. Besides the large amount of medicinal pills he had created, there were also quite a lot of beast pelts and bones he had obtained during these 2 years in the bag. Through Fong Mu, Su Ming understood that the tribes in the land of South Morning were slightly different from the alliance of the western region. The demand for herbs here might be high, but most of them were obtained from wild beasts. For example, the first time he had met Fong Mu, they had been hunting the python to extract its venomous gall and its bones, which could be used to concoct medicine. Su Ming made ample preparations and charged towards the rainforest at the foot of the mountain. When night fell, Su Ming walked out of the edge of the rainforest for the first time. He wore a sky-blue long robe. His black hair danced in the wind and rain. Before him was a vast grassland. Su Ming lowered his head and averted his gaze before walking forward. The world was huge, but besides him, there was no one else around him. In truth, there were very few people who came to the rainforest. Even if there were people who came in the past, most of them were only here to obtain ingredients to create medicine. The moon was bright in the sky. Moonlight shone on the ground. Su Ming moved forward quietly. He was so quick that he was like a long arc charging forward. However, the long arc did not rise into the sky. Instead, it stuck close to the ground and moved forward. Fong Mu said that I'll need 10 days in this direction. Su Ming had long since learned about the location of Han Mountain City from Fong Mu, and he also knew some of the details about the city in his heart. This is a chaotic city, and it's controlled by 3 tribes. Since it's located at the center, that's why there are a lot of powerful warriors here. And most of the 3 tribes are lax in their behavior. They will even choose guests among the powerful warriors who come to this city and invite them over with great gifts. Su Ming's eyes sparkled, and he became faster. The land of South Morning was dominated by mountain ranges. There were hundreds of thousands of them on this vast land. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was the land of mountains. There were many mountains. It would not an exagerto said that it. Since there were a lot of tribes in the land of South Morning, all sorts of strange berserker arts could be found. There are also a lot of powerful berserkers and berserkers. The existence of the great tribe of Freezing Sky, especially the establishment of Freezing Sky Clan, provided the land of South Morning with a powerful foundation. The existence of the great tribe of Freezing Sky, and especially the establishment of Freezing Sky Clan, provided the land of South Morning with a strong foundation for the prosperity of the land of South Morning. It was a sect belonging to berserkers. As long as they were berserkers in the land of South Morning, no matter which tribe they came from, they could enter Freezing Sky Clan's test. Freezing Sky Clan was incredibly famous in the land of South Morning. There were many rumors about it. It was said that it was first established 6,000 years ago by the elder of Freezing Sky tribe with the help of outsiders. As time passed by, Freezing Sky, which was once a middle-sized tribe, slowly grew stronger and became one of the two big tribes in the land of South Morning. Freezing Sky Clan rose to power because of that. It was said that there were 100,000 berserkers in Freezing Sky. It was the first tribe in the land of South Morning to break the restrictions between the tribes and open up the berserker tribe's arts to the public, allowing those with great potential to have a nourishing place for them to grow into powerful berserkers. It was said that the reason the great tribe of Freezing Sky could become one of the great tribes of the land of South Morning was closely related to Freezing Sky Clan. There is even a rumor in the sect that said that everything in the sect was modeled after the mysterious and unfathomable lands in the other worlds, which were completely different from the Berserker tribe. It was rumored that there were no tribes in the other worlds, only sects. Due to Freezing Sky Clan's success, the entire land of South Morning seemed to have stirred up a wave of sections. A large number of tribes imitated Freezing Sky Clan, especially the Eastern Sea tribe, which was as famous as Freezing Sky. They formed Western Sea Clan, and there were often conflicts between them. Similarly, besides the small tribes, the middle-sized tribes who had some power also imitated Freezing Sky Clan and formed their own sects. However, these sects were still mainly made up of berserkers from their own tribe. They could not get rid of their xenophobia. At most, they would only open up a portion of their inherited berserker arts to attract powerful guests from all over the land to join them and increase the tribe's power. Most of them were using each other, and they were constantly on guard against each other. Su Ming had already found out about these things during the past half a year when he made a few deals with Feng Mu. He was not too surprised by the strangeness of the land of South Morning. After all, he might have come from the alliance of the Western region, but he had only stayed near Dark Mountain since he was young. His understanding of the alliance of the Western region was not as good as his understanding of the land of South Morning. More accurately speaking, Han Mountain City was built in this sort of environment. In truth, it might have existed for 2,000 years, but it had only been occupied by Puqiang, Lake of Colors, and Tranquil East tribe for less than 400 years. Su Ming had once heard from Feng Mu that the great battle 400 years ago was recorded on the wooden slip of their tribe. At that time, Han Mountain City was controlled by an incredibly powerful middle-sized tribe, Han tribe. After it declined slightly, it was devoured by the three tribes under its control. Once they killed all of their tribe members, they successfully took over Han Mountain City. They wanted to take over the city because whoever took over the city would have the right to contact Freezing Sky Clan. Besides, whoever took over Han Mountain City from the surrounding areas would be the same as becoming the overlord of the area. They would also have some special rights that Feng Mu did not know about. However, there was not much of a difference in power between the three tribes. They did not have the strength to continue fighting, or else Han Mountain City would have to change hands. That was why the leaders of the three tribes made an alliance to control the city together. However, they would not control it with the tribes, but with the three tribes as a sect. The information he obtained from Feng Mu surfaced in Su Ming's head. A few days later, he stood at the top of a mountain and looked ahead. It was dusk at that moment. Not too far away from the dark sky was a tall mountain. There were no plants on it, only a mountain city. It was made entirely of mountain rocks and looked incredibly majestic. It was not something that Windstream City could compare to. This was the most shocking city Su Ming had ever seen since he was young. He stood at the top of the mountain and looked at the mountain city for a long time. Then he took a deep breath, and a bright light appeared in his eyes. He could vaguely remember why the elder had ventured out so many times when he was young and left Dark Mountain to travel around the world. Only by seeing more and seeing the real world could a person be considered to have grown. Otherwise, the only thing that matured would be the body, not the soul. Su Ming did not choose to go there immediately. He sat down cross-legged as the mountain wind blew against his face, causing his long hair to dance in the air. Once he got closer, He could clearly feel the soles of the wings of the moon in his body becoming restless. As he sat down, he closed his eyes. After a moment, he opened them, and the shadow of the blood-red moon appeared in his eyes. The shadow of the blood-red moon was very faint. No one could see it, but right before Su Ming's eyes, the world changed abruptly. He saw that above the mountain city, there were 3 clouds of mist floating in the air, each clearly separated from the other. The 3 bundles of fog were red, black, and white. At the same time, beyond Han Mountain City, there were 3 tall mountains surrounding the city. There were 3 different colors of fog rising into the sky from each of the 3 mountains. They looked incredibly shocking, as if they were afraid that others would not know about the mysteries of this place. The fog on a mountain to the left of Han Mountain City was red. A woman's face could be seen faintly in the red fog. She exuded a chilling aura, causing all those who looked at her to be shocked. To the right of Han Mountain City was another mountain that was shrouded in white fog. It looked as if it was surrounded by clouds and mist. As it gathered together, there was also a grim air about it. Occasionally, the shadow of a gigantic white scorpion would appear indistinctly in the white fog. It could be vaguely seen that there seemed to be a black bell on the scorpion's tail. The last mountain was located at the back of Han Mountain City. It was surrounded by black fog and exuded an air of death. It was incredibly ghastly, and there was a black skeleton that seemed to be sitting cross-legged in the fog. The black fog is Puqiang tribe, the red is Lake of Colors tribe, and the white is Tranquil East tribe. Su Ming mumbled. The shadow of the blood-red moon disappeared from his eyes. The 3 mountains surrounded the mountain where Han Mountain City was located. It might seem like the distance between them was not far, but in truth, if a normal tribe member walked there, they would need several days. There were 3 iron chains that looked slightly thin. They extended from a mountain where Han Mountain City was located and were connected to the mountains where the 3 tribes were located. Below the iron chains was a canyon that was hundreds of thousands of feet deep. If anyone fell down, unless they were in the transcendence realm, then they would definitely die. The 3 iron chains seemed to be too tall and swayed in the mountain breeze. Further away, behind the 3 mountain peaks that belonged to different tribes that were connected by the iron chain, one could still vaguely see that the iron chain seemed to have penetrated through and extended to an even further place. However, that place was covered by fog, and the end of one site was a blur that could not be seen clearly. The 3 tribes are clearly using this pressure to cover Han Mountain City to show off their strength. Not only are they intimidating others, they can also attract powerful guests to join them. Su Ming's eyes sparkled. He stared at the mountain behind Han Mountain City that was surrounded by the black fog. That was where Puqiang tribe was located. There are some things I'd like to tell all of you. Devil Seeking is a brand new system. In my memories, there are very few people who wrote about the era of the Berserker tribe. Of course, if you insist that it's a shaman, then I can't do anything about it. From the information I found and my understanding, shamans are derived from the Berserkers, and from there, they turn into Tao. This is not foundation building, not core formation, not nascent soul. Please don't compare it. If you keep comparing it, you'll only become more confused. When you look at a brand new system, you'll be unfamiliar with it, so you'll be unfamiliar with it. You'll also have to compare it, so it'll be harder for you to assimilate with it. In fact, you'll feel as if you're looking at the savages of the primitive tribes in the West. This is because your understanding is affected by the game and some false information. I can't do anything about it. In China's history, the earliest era was also a tribal society. It's the same for the 3 Miao tribe. We are the descendants of Yin and Huang. The time and legends of the Yin Emperor and the Yellow Emperor also happened during the tribal period. You can treat Devil Seeking as a story from that era. Of course, that's just the environment. In truth, there's a huge difference. In fact, in the legends, our ancestors experienced the tribal period in history. Everyone should know about this. I've prepared this book for almost a year. The structure is not small. What I've unfolded now is just a corner of it. If you have the patience, you can slowly unfold this system that you might not have seen in Starting Point. As for the monthly tickets, Devil Seeking is a new book. Moreover, it's only the first month. To be honest, I don't want everyone to work too hard. We still have a lot of time. Let's just take one step at a time. Of course, as for recommendation tickets, because it's free and can even increase points, it's a must. I strongly despise those who forget to vote for recommendation tickets. Finally, it's time to repay the debt. From today onwards, many good friends have given me advertisements for the new book. Even though they didn't ask me to repay the debt, I've been feeling uneasy recently. It's not easy to repay favors. Moreover, Ear is so kind, and he's such a good person. The first one to repay is an old bird called Whitebird. When he starts a new book, he wants to be the first to advertise. The advertisements for the past few days are all good books. I'll repay the debt 3 times a day. The first one is White Crane's new book, God Creation. Book number 228-1622. Speaking of which, I beat this God Creation into a kitchen god every time. The second one is written by a guy called Fat Cat. Book number 208-3259. This guy has a tendency to force himself. His ears have been forcefully kissed. Even now, he still has nightmares and wakes up from time to time. Everyone, pay attention. The third one is Brother Dong's Shrouding the Heavens. Book number 173-5921. Brother Dong is a kind person. Every time Ear goes to Beijing, he'll treat him to a karaoke. He's such a good person. I'll have to find a chance to go there in the next few months. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for recommendation and monthly tickets. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 120. Feng Mu was right. Puqiang tribe is indeed the same as Wu's senator. They train with the aura of death. But by the looks of it, they can't compare to Wu-san, Su Ming mumbled. After a long while, he averted his gaze from the mountain and looked at Han Mountain City in the distance. He got up and walked down the mountain path towards Han Mountain City, which was bathed in dusk. If I really manage to create that spirit plunder, then from now on, I'll fit the description of a fallen berserker. Su Ming's shadow was stretched out in the dusk. There was loneliness in that shadow, but there was also a sense of determination and persistence within it. The evening sun brought with it a hint of warmth as it shone on the mountain range. Su Ming welcomed the setting sun and walked towards the unfamiliar Han Mountain City. The city had already looked majestic from a distance, and as Su Ming got closer, the city looked even more astonishing. The city was built around a mountain, and the height of the mountain turned into a mighty pressure that formed a powerful, oppressive presence. All the people who got close to the city could feel, even from the foot of the mountain. The 3 balls of fog surrounding the city also served as an intimidating presence. Because of that, even those with extraordinary levels of cultivation could not help but be cautious when they came to this place. Su Ming looked at Han Mountain City and took a deep breath. His expression was calm as he walked up the mountain path. There were 8 wide steps leading up to the foot of Han Mountain City. They were connected to the 8 gates of the city that appeared at the mountainside, as if they were going straight up. If anyone wanted to enter the city, they would have to walk up the mountain stairs. Only 4 of the 8 gates were open to the public. The other 4 belonged to the 3 tribes that controlled the city. The last one was known as the guest path. The mountain stairs and the gate connected to it could only be used by the powerful guests of the 3 tribes. The hierarchy was strict to show off the strength of the 3 tribes and their desire to take in the powerful guests. This was the first time Su Ming came to this place. He walked up the mountain stairs that led to the normal gates slowly. There was no one guarding the stairs. When Su Ming was halfway up the mountain, he saw one of the 8 gates of Han Mountain City. The gate was arched, and there were 2 huge stone statues that were about 100 feet tall, standing beside it. These 2 stone statues belonged to the barbarian tribe, and they seemed to be fighting. Even though they were not moving, there was a murderous aura coming from them. This door was formed by the arms of the 2 stone statues, which were placed together as the frame, forming the shape of the door. High above, on the door frame formed by the arms of the 2 statues, there was a young man in gray robes leaning against the door frame. One of his legs was dangling down, swinging casually. The young man had a token hanging from his waist. It was blue with a smear of red. His eyes were closed, as if he was taking a nap. There was a green gourd in his hand, and the smell of alcohol emanating from it was so strong that not even the wind could blow it away. As he looked at the gate, a brilliant glint appeared briefly in Su Ming's eyes. This was the most majestic city he had ever seen in his life. He engraved the appearance of the city gate into his mind. Su Ming lifted his feet and stepped through the gate. The moment he entered Han Mountain City, a lazy voice traveled into his ears. "Sir, don't you know the rules?" The person who spoke was the young man. He opened his eyes and took a sip from the green gourd by his side. He cast a glance at Su Ming, as if he was drunk. Su Ming's robes caused his eyes to clear up slightly. Su Ming's expression was calm. The moment the man spoke, he lifted his right hand and flicked his wrist. A white stone coin flew out and charged towards the young man, who caught it. Su Ming had long since understood from Feng Mu that anyone could enter Han Mountain City as long as they paid a certain amount of stone coins. Based on the amount of time they stayed in the city, the number of stone coins would increase. Once the young man put away the stone coin, he threw out a gray token and leaned against the wall once again. He drank the wine from the gourd and took a nap. Su Ming took the token and hung it on his waist. The color of the token was divided into different colors. Besides the people from the 3 tribes, no one else could use the black, red, and white colors. The powerful guests were given a blue token, and a different color was added based on the tribe they belonged to. The normal people entering and leaving the city were given a gray token. If the light on the token dimmed, it meant that they could not stay in the city unless they spent more stone coins to increase the time they stayed in the city. If not, then the guards in the city would punish them severely if they found out about it. Most of the people who entered the city had to hang the token on their waist or other obvious spots. Su Ming still did not make a sound. With the gray plate hanging around his neck, he walked through the door and entered Han Mountain City. A wave of noise came crashing into his face. It was as if the city had been separated into 2 different worlds compared to the silence outside the door. This made Su Ming slightly surprised. There were many people in Han Mountain City. There were a lot of shops in the city that was built around the mountain. It was a bustling sight. The houses were also built with mountain stones. The mudstone city could not compare to them. As he walked through Han Mountain City, Su Ming looked at his surroundings. Almost everything in the city gave him a sense of unfamiliarity. The prosperity and noise seemed to be at odds with his silence. There were houses, shops, and even gigantic buildings that were hundreds of feet tall. Su Ming did not see anyone wearing bee skins among the pedestrians in the area. At the very least, they were wearing sackcloth of many different colors. There were also quite a number of people who were like him, wearing robes that were clearly much more expensive than the ones he was wearing. It's about the size of 10 mudstone cities. Su Ming walked calmly on the mountain paths of Han Mountain City and swept his gaze over the people walking past him. There aren't many normal people here. Most of them are berserkers, and they're not weak either. As Su Ming walked, he continued observing his surroundings. Soon, the sky darkened, but the bustling atmosphere in the city did not decrease. Based on his experiences in Windstream City and his understanding from Feng Mu, Su Ming did not appear lost even though it was his first time in Han Mountain City. Instead, as he observed his surroundings selectively, he found a place that Feng Mu had mentioned before. It was a lodging specifically provided for outsiders. The lodging was incredibly lively at that time. Su Ming's expression remained aloof. Once he entered, he swept his gaze across the place. There were many tables and chairs in the place. He walked calmly to one of the empty seats. Once he sat down, someone came up to him with a smile on their face. With just a few words, Su Ming gained an understanding of the place. He booked a room to rest in and chose some food. He also ordered some wine that was mostly available on the other tables before he sat down and looked out the window as if he was deep in thought. However, his ears were listening to the conversations of the people around him. Most of their words were useless to him, but there were also a lot of them that seemed to be talking about some minor matters regarding the city. For the next few months, Han Mountain City will become even livelier. For some reason, Puqiang Tribe, Lake of Colors Tribe, and Tranquil's tribe have increased their intake of guests. You haven't been here for long, so you don't know the details. These three tribes are fighting against each other openly and secretly. Every once in a while, they will increase their intake of guests. They want to learn from the great tribe of Freezing Sky and strengthen themselves. But this is a chance for us. I heard that Lake of Colors tribe has chosen 10 women in their tribe to take in guests through marriage. The women from Lake of Colors tribe are very helpful to our training. This time, Lake of Colors tribe is putting in a lot of effort. It's a pity that we're not powerful berserkers in the Transcendence realm, or else we'd get even more benefits. I heard that when Sir Xianluan joined Puqiang tribe gave him a statue of the god of berserkers as a gift. Time trickled by. Su Ming sat there and drank the wine that made him frown slightly. It was very spicy and made him very uncomfortable, but as he drank, a strange feeling rose within him, and he gradually got used to it. He knew that everything in this place was unfamiliar to him. That was why ever since he entered the city, he had been observing and listening. He had been sitting there for almost 4 hours. The sky outside was already dark, but Han Mountain City was still brightly lit. Even the tower was lit up by the candlesticks hanging high up in the air. As he drank, he listened to the conversations of the people around him. His understanding towards Han Mountain City also increased. Feng Mu has hinted many times that if I join Tranquil's tribe and become a guest of Tranquil's tribe, he'll give me a huge gift and fulfill a lot of conditions. There must be a reason why he's taking in guests like this. Su Ming took a sip of his wine and listened to the discussions around him quietly. When midnight arrived and there were fewer people around, he was about to get up and go to his room to rest when his expression suddenly changed. He did not get up, but instead picked up his wine and took another sip. A person walked in from outside the door. That person was a man in his 30s. He was different from the others. The reason why Su Ming did not leave was because this person was wearing bee skins. This was the first familiar attire Su Ming saw in Han Mountain City that day. That person's face was slightly pale, and he was frowning. Once he walked in, he sat down at a table that was slightly further away from Su Ming. He ordered some wine and drank quietly. There was hesitation, uncertainty, and a hint of panic on his face. This person should be at least at the 10th level of the blood solidification realm. He might even have reached the peak of the blood solidification realm. He's only one step away from transcendence. Su Ming's expression did not change. The man may not have released his qi, but Su Ming could still feel the faint pressure coming from him. Another hour passed. The man drank mouthful after mouthful of wine without saying a word, but the struggle in his eyes became more and more intense. He even raised his head to look at the door from time to time, as if he was waiting for someone to arrive. Yet as time passed by, when only Su Ming and the man were left, and even the waiter who served the guests had fallen asleep on the table, a disappointed look appeared on the man's face. He cast a seemingly casual glance at Su Ming and continued drinking his wine quietly. The hesitation on his face gradually turned into determination and ruthlessness. Su Ming did not want to attract attention. At that moment, he got up and walked towards the backyard. Through the time he had spent observing the place, he had gained a great understanding of the place. He knew that the place was a resting area specially prepared for outsiders, and he had also booked a room beforehand. When he walked over, a gust of wind suddenly blew past the door, causing the candles on the candlesticks to flicker and flicker. At the same time, a woman in white walked in slowly. She did not look old. There was a white veil over her face, so her face could not be seen clearly. Only her eyes could be seen. They were like the stars in the sky, and there was a strange charm to them. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 121. When a man who was drinking saw the woman, surprise immediately appeared on his face. He stood up as if he wanted to say something, but the woman's eyes were calm. When she walked over, she sat down opposite the man. She swept her gaze across the area and looked past Su Ming, who was about to leave, as if she did not care about him. Can I? The man seemed to be very nervous. He did not sit down, but asked in a low voice instead. You don't have the right, but I've bought you one day to prove that you do. Su Ming left. These were the words he heard before he left. The two people did not seem to be avoiding his words, but Su Ming did not want to get involved in things that had nothing to do with him. Even if he could somewhat tell that there was some sort of secret between the man and the woman, it had nothing to do with him. The night passed uneventfully. When dawn arrived the next day, Su Ming opened his eyes from his meditation. He smoothed out his robes and left his room. There was a thin layer of fog covering Han Mountain City in the morning. When he walked outside, it was as if he was walking on clouds. It was a strange feeling. After observing and listening to the people yesterday, Su Ming had gained a better understanding of Han Mountain City. He walked down the street and lifted his head to look at the mountain city. More accurately speaking, there were 4 layers to the city. He was currently at the 4th layer, which was located at the deepest part of the city. It was also the largest. The 3rd layer had a limit on the level of cultivation. If the person's level of cultivation was not high enough, they would not be able to enter. As for the 2nd layer, and even the 1st layer, only those who had a certain status could enter. The star-plucking tower is located at the top of the mountain city above the 1st layer. Only powerful berserkers in the Transcendence realm who have become guests of one of the 3 tribes can enter that place. Su Ming looked at the top of the mountain city and averted his gaze after a long while. He walked towards the shops selling herbs in the area of the 4th layer. Su Ming did not buy the herbs needed to create Mountain Spirit and South Asunder. The main reason he came to Han Mountain City this time was to search for a map to the alliance of the Western region and the herbs needed to create Spirit Plunder. Su Ming spent the entire morning going in and out of the shops. The herbs sold, they were comprehensive, but the prices were much higher compared to those sold in Windstream. Fortunately, Feng Mu had given Su Ming stone coins to show his respect, so he had plenty of them. I still lack 5 herbs to create Spirit Plunder. When noon arrived, Su Ming fell into deep thought and walked towards the entrance to the 3rd layer of the city. There was also a majestic gate there. There was a dark light shining behind the gate. There were dozens of people nearby, and they looked as if they were there to watch a show. Su Ming saw some of the berserkers successfully walking through the gate, but there were also some who did not have enough power and were bounced back when they tried to enter. Their faces were filled with indignation, but they had no choice but to stop trying. Instead, they walked towards the onlookers and seemed to have bought something before they successfully entered the dim light of the mountain gate. After observing for a while, Su Ming lifted his feet and walked towards the mountain gate. His arrival was immediately noticed by the onlookers. Su Ming's expression remained calm as he stepped into the dim light. Yet at that moment, he immediately felt a repelling force appear out of nowhere and land on his body. It was as if someone had pushed him with force. He staggered a few steps back and could not enter. The cultivation level is limited to the 8th level of the blood solidification realm. Su Ming frowned. As he retreated, he determined the requirements to enter the 3rd layer of the gate based on the repelling force. Another person who doesn't have any abilities but still wants to try. You. I'm talking to you. Come here. One of the dozens of onlookers immediately called out to Su Ming. Su Ming looked at him coldly. The person who spoke was a middle-aged man at the 5th level of the blood solidification realm. When he saw Su Ming looking at him with hostility, he immediately glared at him and revealed a white plate hanging on his waist. You look very stubborn. This pass only costs 1,000 stones, but if you want to enter the 3rd layer, 1,300 stones. The middle-aged man let out a cold snort and took out a palm-sized stone from his chest. He waved it in his hand. Su Ming averted his gaze and ignored the middle-aged man. Instead, he looked at the dark light on the mountain gate and took a step forward once again. His actions not only caused the middle-aged man to laugh coldly, it also attracted the attention of the surrounding members of the 3 tribes who were also selling the pass. All of them looked over and roared with laughter. It's been a few days since I've seen such a person. Fong Lin, you can't sell it for 1,300 stones. That guy actually let Fong Lin catch up to him. He's profited. If it were me, I wouldn't sell it for less than 2,000 stones. Either he comes to buy it, or he can forget about going in. Who asked him to have such a low cultivation base? These dozen or so people were obviously very familiar with each other. At this moment, as they roared with laughter, they already had a tacit understanding. No one would sell at a low price. Instead, they would help each other raise the price. Their laughter attracted the attention of the people around them, especially those who were unable to pass through the gate. Most of them had sympathetic looks on their faces. Su Ming approached the mountain gate, but he did not step in. Instead, he lifted his right hand and pressed it against the dark light, feeling that repelling force once again. 2,000 stones. If you give me 2,000 stones, I'll sell this pass to you. Boy, I'm telling you, you're not the first person to cause trouble. If you don't buy it today, then based on our rules, even if I'm not here the next time you come, you'll still have to spend more stone coins to... The middle-aged man from Tranquil tribe immediately shouted loudly, but before he could finish speaking, he abruptly stopped himself. The people around him were also shocked. They no longer roared with laughter, but instead stared at the mountain gate with dumbfounded expressions of shock on their faces. Su Ming was standing there without moving. He only pressed his right hand against the dark light, but the dark light started flashing furiously. It was as if an invisible force had rushed into it, causing the dark light to sink in like a piece of cloth that was being pulled. A large amount of ripples spread out from it, as if it could not withstand the force. This scene made the people from the 3 tribes who were selling the passes suck in a sharp breath. The middle-aged man's face turned pale in an instant. They had been earning stone coins in this place for many years and had seen far too many people entering and exiting this place every day. They could be said to have seen many things. They had seen this sort of sinking in the dark light dozens of times, but every single time this sort of change happened, it was caused by a powerful berserker in the Transcendence realm. Once a powerful berserker in the Transcendence realm entered the gate, the dark light would be pulled, and eventually it would be torn apart. In the midst of their silence, a crack suddenly appeared on the dark light on the mountain gate before Su Ming. Su Ming slowly pulled back his lifted right hand and calmly took a step forward. Once he stepped through the crack, the dark light on the mountain gate gradually returned to normal. It was silent outside the mountain gate. The middle-aged man pretended to be calm despite his nervousness. The people from the 3 tribes beside him were stunned for a moment before they looked at the middle-aged man with pity. You provoked a berserker in the Transcendence realm. Fong Lin, you're on your own now. I didn't expect him to be in the Transcendence realm. How old does he look? I've never seen this person before. This senior must have just come to Han Mountain City recently. The middle-aged man was slightly flustered. He may have forced himself to remain calm, but the fear in his heart made him not dare to continue selling the passes. He quickly left with regret in his heart. His judgment had always been accurate, or else he would not have been able to do this. He had clearly seen Su Ming's first failure, and based on the strength of the rebound, he had guessed Su Ming's level of cultivation. That was why he had said those words, but he did not expect that he would be wrong. Isn't this just bullying me? You're a senior. You can just go there once, and it'll be fine. Why did you have to make things difficult for me? The more the middle-aged man thought about it, the more wronged he felt. At that moment, Su Ming walked into the mountain gate and stepped into the 3rd layer of Han Mountain City. He turned his head back and looked at the dim light within the mountain gate. A contemplative look appeared on his face. Looks like fine control isn't something a normal berserker in the blood solidification realm can master. This is the 2nd time I've used fine control over my chi, and I managed to walk in easily. The depression in the dim light is also clearly different from when other people entered. Su Ming continued walking forward in silence. He walked along the mountain path, and not too far away from him was the 2nd layer of Han Mountain City. There were not many buildings there, and there were fewer people on the streets as well. However, all of them were at least at the 8th level of the blood solidification realm. The buildings also looked grander, and there was a faint pressure spreading out from them. It was clear that there were powerful berserkers guarding these buildings. It might be noon, but this place was not as noisy as the 4th layer. Su Ming walked past the shops. Suddenly, a glint appeared in his eyes. A hint of surprise appeared on his face, but it soon disappeared. This was a shop that sold materials from wild beasts. There was a bloody stench in the air. There was an old man sitting cross-legged in the shop. His eyes were closed, and there were several black bells on his right wrist. The shop was not big. There was a spider the size of a millstone nailed to the right wall by 9 black wooden nails. The spider was entirely purple and was already dead, but it had 9 legs. The 9th leg was crimson red, and it was clearly different from the other limbs. This is one of the 3 materials needed to create the welcoming of deities. Su Ming averted his gaze and walked towards the shop. Yet the moment Su Ming was about to step into the shop, the 3 balls of fog floating in the sky above Han Mountain City suddenly changed. They started tumbling abruptly, and muffled rumbling sounds reverberated in the air. The sudden change immediately made the old man in the shop open his eyes. He was not the only one. Almost all the people in the 3rd layer felt their hearts tremble and lifted their heads to look. The 3 balls of mist tumbled even more violently. At the same time, in the city built around the mountain, on the 1st level, in the star-picking tower at the peak of the mountain, there was suddenly an ancient sound of a bell echoing in all directions. Dong! 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 The bell chime seemed to have stirred up invisible waves of sound that tumbled through the area. Not only did it attract the attention of the people in the 3rd layer, it also caused the people in the 4th layer to burst into an uproar. Even the people in the 2nd layer focused their attention on the bell chime. The bell chime sounded 3 times. Someone wants to challenge the chains of Han Mountain. It's been a long time since someone dared to challenge the chains of Han Mountain. Most of the people who fail die, but once they succeed, they can enter the 3 tribes and fulfill one of their requests. The request is secondary. The most important thing is that if they succeed, they will definitely become the chief guest of the tribe. Their status will not be something a normal guest can compare to. I even heard that this is one of the signs for Freezing Sky Clan when they come to Han Mountain City to take in disciples. Which tribe's chain of life and death is the challenger going to challenge? The sounds of discussions rose in Su Ming's ears. At the top of the mountain, at the center of the 3 chains connected to the mountain, a person appeared. It's him. When Su Ming saw the person clearly, a contemplative look appeared in his eyes. 3 books to pay the debt. First, Huang Fuqi's great Zhou royal family. Huang Fu is a good man. He doesn't talk much, but he's a good person. Second, Wind Chime's world conquering the 9 heavens. This guy isn't a good person. His ears exploded just now. I looked down on him. Third, Pai's ruler. Pai weighs as much as my ears before I lost weight. Ahem, now that I'm thin, I can be proud of myself. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 122. The person stood at the top of the mountain. Wind blew past his body, causing his long hair to dance in the air. As he stood there, he wore a beast skin robe, and there was a boorish air about him. That person was the man Su Ming had seen the previous night. The blood veins appeared on the man's body and turned into a vast amount of qi that seemed to be able to sweep through the area and form a pressure that was only weaker than the transcendence realm. He had not transcended, but the number of blood veins on his body had already surpassed the limit of 781 blood veins a normal berserker could have. By the looks of it, he had around 800 blood veins. At that moment, there was a serious look on his face. There was determination on his face, along with ruthlessness and a determination to throw all caution to the wind. It's He Feng. It's him. I've heard of him before. He's already at the 11th level of the blood solidification realm, but he failed to transcend 3 times. Even so, he's so strong that he's the strongest among the 5 transcended berserkers in Han Mountain City, not including the people from the 3 tribes. He's one of the few people who came from a small tribe in Han Mountain City. I don't know why, but he likes to keep the beast skin robes he wore when he was in a small tribe. But in my opinion, he's just trying to impress the crowd. Besides, he overestimates himself. How dare he challenge the chains of Han Mountain? Besides Tsong Lan, who successfully walked through the sixth chain of Tranquil East tribe 10 years ago and was taken in as a disciple of Freezing Sky Clan, very few people have succeeded. Su Ming looked at the man on the top of the mountain. His face was calm, but there was a faint flicker in his eyes. He had never heard about the chains of Han Mountain from Feng Mu. This was the first time he heard about it, and he remembered it in his heart. Over the hundreds of years in Han Mountain City, there have been 65 people who challenged the chains of Han Mountain. He Feng is the 66th person, but only 5 of them succeeded. An old voice came from the crowd in the third layer. The person who spoke was the old man from the shop Su Ming had wanted to enter. The old man walked out slowly and looked at Yi Feng in the sky as he spoke languidly. The old man's expression was calm as he muttered, "Most people will die if they fail, but it's not absolute." At that moment, not only did Han Mountain City burst into an uproar, causing countless people to stare at it without blinking. In fact, as the bell chimes rang, there were also people moving about in the 3 mountains connected by the chains that surrounded Han Mountain City. It was clear that He Feng's actions had caught their attention. Almost everyone was guessing which part of the chain He Feng would choose to challenge. At the top of the mountain where the 3 chains intersected, He Feng's eyes shone brilliantly. The first thing he did was look at the chain that connected Puqiang tribe. A chilling glare appeared in his eyes. That was not his choice. Instead, he looked at the mountain where a Lake of Colors tribe was located. In his eyes, the mountain of Lake of Colors tribe in the distance was filled with thick red fog, and there seemed to be a woman's face faintly discernible in that fog. The rugged man took a deep breath and lifted his feet, walking towards the chain that connected Lake of Colors tribe. As he did so, all the gazes in Han Mountain City were immediately attracted by his actions. Under the countless gazes, they saw He Feng gradually walking towards the chain that connected the mountain to Lake of Colors tribe. Just as he was about to land on the chain that connected the mountain of Lake of Colors, a mighty pressure that could suppress all the berserkers in the blood solidification realm in Han Mountain City erupted from the second layer. At the same time, a person in purple robes charged forward, stepping on air as if he was about to close in on He Feng, who was challenging the chains of Han Mountain at the top of the mountain. He Feng, the person in purple, flew out and let out a low growl. His voice was like thunder. As it reverberated in the air, it was deafening to the ears. He Feng shuddered as he stood at the top of the mountain. When he looked over, a complicated mixture of hatred and panic appeared on his face. Transcendence realm. Su Ming stared at the person in purple and took a deep breath. However, he no longer had the respect he had when he first saw those in the Transcendence realm. Sir Xianluan, one of the 5 berserkers in the Transcendence realm in Han Mountain City, besides the 3 tribes. Sir Xianluan. Cries of surprise reverberated in the air. It was clear that most of the people did not expect that such a thing would happen when someone was challenging the chains of Han Mountain. The person in purple stepped in the air and was about to reach the top of the mountain. But at that moment, at the end of the chain that connected He Feng to Lake of Colors tribe's mountain, a cold harumph came from Lake of Colors tribe, which was covered in red fog. The cold harumph seemed to have come from a distance, but when the person in purple heard it, he froze for a moment, but he did not stop moving. He charged forward and closed in on He Feng, who was on the top of the mountain. He lifted his right hand and formed his fingers into a claw before he seized the air. He Feng's face was pale, but he did not dodge. Instead, he stared at the approaching person in purple. The panic in his eyes disappeared and was replaced by a monstrous hatred. The moment the person in purple's claw touched He Feng, a layer of red fog suddenly appeared out of nowhere from He Feng's body and surrounded him, turning into a screen of fog. With a loud bang, the person in purple's right hand crashed into a screen of red fog. His body trembled, and he tumbled back hundreds of feet, revealing himself to be a middle-aged man in purple robes. His face was dark and filled with killing intent. Yin Luan, what is the meaning of this? I don't care what sort of grudge you have with Yi Feng, but since he chose to walk through the chain of Lake of Colors tribe, you can't hurt him. This is the agreement between the 3 tribes. I believe that Puqiang tribe won't agree to make an exception. A cold woman's voice traveled forth slowly from the mountain belonging to Lake of Colors tribe. The entire Han Mountain city was silent. Su Ming stood there and watched everything. In his head, the image of the veiled woman in white who had waited anxiously for He Feng the night before flashed past. It's not the same voice. Perhaps it's two people. Last night, the woman said that she fought for one day for him to prove that he has the right to join. Looks like He Feng wants to prove himself by challenging the chains of Han Mountain. But what right does he have to prove? If he wants to join Lake of Colors tribe, he doesn't need to go through so much trouble. After all, if he fails the chains, he'll most likely die. Su Ming looked at He Feng and Xian Luan in purple robes standing at the top of the mountain. He did not need to guess to know, just from their words, that the hatred between these two people ran deep. This Xian Luan should know a lot. He must be worried about this as well. That's why he attacked at this moment, ignoring the strict rule of the three tribes in Han Mountain City that forbids fights. A pensive look appeared in Su Ming's eyes. However, this matter had nothing to do with him. After thinking about it for a while, he no longer cared about it. Xian Luan's face became darker, but it was clear that he was wary of the woman who spoke. However, he did not want to give up. It was just as Su Ming thought. He had no choice but to attack at this moment, or else once He Feng died, he would have trouble obtaining the item he wanted. In his mind, it was impossible for He Feng to succeed. At this moment, on another mountain peak in the Puqiang tribe, which was shrouded in black mist, a gloomy voice reverberated from the skeleton that was meditating. Xian Luan, fights are forbidden in Han Mountain City. All right, but this person once killed my follower. Your Puqiang tribe must help me find his corpse after he died. The man in purple robes fell silent for a moment before he let out a cold laugh and swung his arm. He landed on the top of the mountain and did not attack again. Instead, he sat down cross-legged and looked at the man called He Feng. His smile became even colder. You are the chief guest of Puqiang tribe. You can do this. A ghastly voice came from the mountain surrounded by black fog. When Su Ming saw this, his gaze fell on the man called He Feng. He looked at him closely, and under his gaze, He Feng took a step towards the chains. As he moved, the people around him instantly forgot about what had just happened and focused their gazes on him. After all, this sort of thing was not common in Han Mountain City. Over the course of hundreds of years, this had only happened 60-something times. Even the man in purple robes, Xianlin, looked over coldly. There was a ruthless look in his eyes as he stared at He Feng's body. He watched as He Feng gradually walked onto the chains and swayed as the chain swayed. At the instant He Feng stepped on the chain, the ground around him rumbled and trembled. 8 gigantic stone pillars that were more than 100 feet thick shot out from the bottomless abyss where the chain under his feet connected to the peak of the red mist lake of colors in the distance. They held up the chain and cut it into 9 parts. Time trickled by. Su Ming could not tell what was going on with the chains, but he saw that He Feng's face was incredibly grave. With each step he took, he seemed to be using all his strength. His body was trembling and veins popped up on his face. He opened his mouth and breathed rapidly. Very soon, 2 hours passed by. During these 2 hours, the entire Han Mountain City was silent. Almost everyone was looking at He Feng. At that moment, He Feng had already walked a third of the way up the first section of chains. The man in purple robes, sitting cross-legged on the summit behind him, frowned. No one knew what he was thinking. Gradually, 2 hours, 4 hours. When the entire afternoon passed and dusk arrived, the light from the setting sun shone on the ground, causing He Feng's body to look as if it had turned into a shadow. He had already walked through most of the first section of the chain. At that moment, the man called He Feng cast some unknown method, and a vast amount of qi abruptly burst forth from his body. In an instant, it was as if his qi had reached its peak. There was also a faint hint of the presence of transcendence that suddenly rose from his body. He's indeed someone who has tried to transcend many times. He might not have succeeded, but there's a hint of transcendence in his body, and he's actually trying to transcend once more right here. If he dares to challenge the chains of Han Mountain, then he must have made preparations. He chose this moment to attempt transcendence. Even if he fails, the burst of power he gained during that instant will allow him to walk a lot further. But I'm a little curious. Even if he relied on the burst of power he gained during the moment he tried to transcend and walk through the first section of the chains, there are 9 of them. How is he going to walk through the rest? Whispers of discussions came from all around them. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He seemed to have grasped the key. His face was calm, but understanding appeared in his eyes. He's not going to challenge all the chains of Han Mountain, but only this section to prove his worth. Just what is his worth? If you like this work, then please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 123. Xianluan's eyes sparkled as he stood at the top of the mountain, as if he had suddenly thought of something. His pupils shrank. Feng's chi surged, and he suddenly sped up. He ran along the chain, and with each step he took, he covered dozens of feet. Very soon, he reached the end of the first section of the chain. By the looks of it, before long, he would reach the first section of the stone pillar. He's not trying to challenge the chains of Han Mountain. Xianluan's expression changed, and a thought that made him feel that something bad was about to happen rose in his head. No, this isn't right. He's using this to prove something. Could it be? Xianluan widened his eyes. The guess in his head was magnified endlessly. When he saw that Feng was not too far away from the first section of the stone pillar, a vicious glint appeared briefly in Xianluan's eyes. He suddenly lifted his right hand and tapped the center of his brows. With a pull, 3 wisps of black mist were dragged out from the center of his brows and turned into 3 trembling, indistinct figures before him. The 3 figures were 2 old men and a girl. There was pain on their faces, and they looked as if they were wailing, but no sound came from them. Yet when Xianluan pointed at them, it was as if he had broken their shackles, causing the 3 figures' shrill cries to echo in the air. Feng Er, Big Brother. The sudden appearance of the voice stunned all the people who were watching. At the same time, Feng, who was not too far away from the end of the first section of the chain, suddenly shuddered and turned his head around. Tears fell from his eyes when he saw the 3 figures before Xianluan. When he saw Feng stopping, Xianluan let out a sigh of relief in his heart. With a cold harumph, he squeezed the girl's body with his right hand and purposely slowed down, causing the girl to let out shrill cries of pain, as if her body was being torn apart once again and she was being devoured bit by bit. The sound echoed in the air, causing all the people who saw it to be shocked. When Su Ming saw this, he frowned and sighed. He had long since guessed that Feng was a person with a past. Feng trembled and glared at Xianluan in the distance. No one could see his expression. They could only see him remaining silent for a moment before he turned around abruptly and continued walking forward. However, his body was trembling even more furiously. At that moment, another shrill scream of pain traveled into the air. That scream was mixed with a cry that could make people's hearts tear. Feng, save me. Once Xianluan crushed the girl's black figure, he pinched one of the 2 old men's figures. He slowly pinched it, and when the screams of pain became weaker and Feng's trembling body looked as if he could no longer move forward and was about to fall, he pinched the last black figure. In the midst of the terrifying screams of pain, Su Ming saw Feng coughing out a mouthful of blood as he stood on the chain. He did not manage to take a firm step forward and missed his footing. His entire body fell towards the bottomless chasm. When Su Ming saw this, he remembered his own tribe, remembered the devastating scenes during their migration, and remembered Baitu's ferociousness. If a wild beast isn't strong, it will become food for humans. If a person wasn't strong enough, their fate would be controlled by the strong. Even if they resisted, it wouldn't be of much use. This was the law of the jungle. If I want to change everything, then I must make myself powerful. There was no sympathy in Su Ming's eyes, only determination and determination. Feng laughed brokenly. His body fell rapidly towards the bottom of the chasm. He closed his eyes. There were too many things he had yet to do. He had yet to take his revenge, but it was as if he no longer had the chance to do so. Xianlun stood up and took a few brisk steps toward the top of the mountain. A cold sneer appeared on his lips. He was only waiting for He-Feng to fall to his death. Then he would use Puqiang tribe's power to retrieve his shattered corpse. He knew that there was a terrifying power within the bottomless chasm. Even he did not dare to step in carelessly. Only the people from the 3 tribes could enter and exit safely under a special ritual. Yet at that moment, a soft sigh suddenly traveled through the air. A white figure walked out from the first layer of Han Mountain City. That figure was delicate and belonged to a woman. There was a white cloud under her feet that looked as if it was supporting her body. She turned into a long white arc and charged towards He-Feng, who was falling from chains. She was so quick that she closed in on him in the blink of an eye, causing He-Feng's body to land on the white cloud with his eyes closed. A glint appeared in Xianlun's eyes as he stared at the woman, but he did not speak. It was as if he, too, was wary of her. In fact, when the woman appeared and saved He-Feng, not even a single sound came from Puqiang tribe. It was as if they had tacitly agreed to her actions. The woman was dressed in white and had a white veil over her face. Her face could not be seen clearly, but her eyes were incredibly beautiful. It was as if there was a strange charm to them that made all those who looked into them feel intoxicated. A thought appeared in Su Ming's head. This woman was the one he saw talking to He-Feng the previous night, but she seemed to be different from the day before. Senior Xianlun, this person knew me a long time ago. That's why I saved him. I hope you won't blame me. The woman's voice was very pleasant to the ears, but there was a chill in it. It was like a gust of cold wind blowing past, making all those who heard it feel a chill down their spines. It's fine. If I knew about this earlier, I wouldn't have interfered. This is just a misunderstanding, but I do have a grudge against him. I hope Han Fei Zi can understand. Xianlun forced out a smile, and a gentle look appeared on his face. Senior, I will naturally not interfere in the matter between you and this person. Once the woman finished speaking, the white cloud under her feet swayed, and she brought the unconscious He-Feng back to the mountain belonging to Lake of Colors tribe in the distance. As she left, Xianlun remained silent for a moment before he waved his arm and returned to the second layer. The 8 gigantic stone pillars under the chains connected to the mountain of Lake of Colors tribe slowly sank down amidst rumbling sounds. In the end, they disappeared into the bottomless abyss, causing the chains to sway with the wind as they continued to descend. When everything returned to normal, Su Ming looked at the woman's disappearing figure in the dusk. He could hear the whispers of the people around him. It's Han Fei Zi. She's the prodigy of Lake of Colors tribe. One of the clan elders in Freezing Sky clan regards her highly. She's considered half a member of Freezing Sky clan. I heard that she should have been accepted into the clan a long time ago, but she requested to postpone it until the next time Freezing Sky clan takes in disciples. I heard about this as well, but even so, she's still known as Han Fei Zi. That's a great honor. I heard that it was given to her by the clan elder of Freezing Sky clan. This isn't a secret anymore. Freezing Sky clan is very strict when they take in disciples. Only the 3 strongest disciples in the clan are given the title of Han Fei Zi. I heard that she already has 900-something blood veins. She's someone who's destined to transcend. Xianlun might be a powerful berserker in the transcendence realm, but he's still very respectful when he faces Freezing Sky clan. The white cloud under her feet should be the treasure passed down through generations in Lake of Colors tribe. I heard that this treasure can change into anything, and it's called Cloud of Colors. The discussions did not last long before the crowd gradually dispersed. Perhaps it was because too many things had happened that day, but most of the people in the 3rd layer no longer had the mood to shop. Very soon, the number of people in the 3rd layer decreased. Some of the shops even closed down early. Su Ming did not leave. Instead, he walked toward the shop he had his eyes on. The old man was sitting cross-legged in the shop. When he saw Su Ming walking over, he looked towards him. I saw that you wanted to come in during noon, but you were interrupted by the challenge of the chains of Han Mountain, the old man said calmly. Su Ming nodded and started looking around the shop. If there's anything you like, just say it. Don't try to pass it off as something valuable. There's nothing in my shop that even I don't know of. I won't let you get it. The old man cast Su Ming a glance and frowned. Su Ming still nodded and pointed at the ninth leg of the nine-legged spider on the wall. I want that. The ninth leg of the nine-legged spider. This is the essence of its entire body. It's incredibly rare. I don't take any stone coins here. What are you going to trade for it? If it's something normal, then don't bring it out, the old man said coldly as he looked at Su Ming. I'll trade this. Su Ming did not waste his breath. He reached his right hand into his robes and brought out a black bone blade. The blade was entirely black, but if anyone took a closer look, they would see a red line within it. That was the bone blade Feng Mu gave him. Su Ming placed the blade on the ground and pushed it towards the old man. The old man's expression changed. He grabbed the blade and looked at it carefully. An imitation berserker vessel from Tranquil East Tribe. The old man lifted his head and swept his gaze past Su Ming. He could not quite grasp Su Ming's origins. He knew that there were very few outsiders who had this bone blade. Only Tranquil East Tribe would have it and create it. The person who could obtain this blade must have some sort of connection with Tranquil East Tribe. Besides the ninth leg of the spider, you'll also need this bone. Su Ming pointed at a black bone the size of a fist on the shelf beside the old man. Strangely, there was a layer of frost on the bone that exuded a cold presence. It was clear that the creature who left this bone behind was not an ordinary beast. Great Thorn Beast's internal bone. I can only trade this blade for one, not two. The old man smiled faintly. He could tell that the person before him was more interested in the internal bone. It was as if it was because of the blade that the old man's expression was no longer as cold as before. It became slightly warmer. Look at this blade carefully. Su Ming looked at the old man and said calmly. The old man was momentarily stunned. When he heard Su Ming's words, he lowered his head and looked at the blade again. His pupil shrank slightly when he saw the red line on the blade. He held the blade and swung it. Immediately, a wave of cold air spread out. Yet deep within that cold air was a wave of heat. The cold and heat blended together as if they had fused together. After a moment, Su Ming walked out of the shop. In his hands was the ninth leg of the nine-striped vein and the black bone. The old man's guess was right. Su Ming was indeed interested in the bone. More accurately speaking, he had to get these two materials. One of them was needed to create the welcoming of deities, and the other was to plant spirit plunder. I didn't expect to find these two items here. I might not be able to use them for now, and I even used the only imitation berserker vessel I have to trade for them, but a glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. The black bells on the old man's right wrist appeared in his mind. Su Ming pushed 3 more books. The first book was the final evolution of Rolling Earth. It was a book that Air Jin had been reading. The second book was 72's Judgment. 72 was a kind person, and his judgment was domineering. The third book was Not to Repay the Debt. He recommended it as a friend. Fat Panda's Dark Judgment. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Achidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 124. This person is from Tranquil East Tribe. First of all, if the tribe leader of Tranquil East Tribe already knows that I'm healing Feng Mu. Su Ming walked forward quietly as he mulled over the matter in his head. He remembered that the elder had once taught him that he had to think more when he ran into a problem. If he could not understand it, he could put himself in the person's shoes and continue thinking based on the person's train of thought. Perhaps he would discover something new. If I was the tribe leader of Tranquil East Tribe, I should be able to see the changes in my child and follow him. But he hasn't shown up yet. Perhaps this means that the fine control art I used to guard against him was effective. Similarly, if I was the tribe leader of Tranquil East Tribe, I would hesitate and make guesses. As I hesitated and hesitated, I would see my child's injuries getting better every single time. If I wasn't absolutely certain, then I wouldn't take the risk and offend a berserker in the transcendence realm I guessed. This won't do me any good. In this sort of situation, if I saw the bone blade my child gave away in the past being taken back by my tribe members, what would I think? Su Ming rubbed the center of his brows. Ever since he came to the unfamiliar land of South Morning, he had to rely on himself for everything. When his power was not enough, he had to use his mind to make up for the difference. Or else it would be difficult for a stranger to gain a foothold in this place unless he was willing to live a normal life. But if he did that, Su Ming did not know how long he would need to return to his hometown. However, he had too little experience in life. He could not do better than that. He could only think about it in a limited way and not let himself show his hostility easily. But once he did, he had to be resolute. I'll start with Feng Mu as a guide and continue down this path. Once my power reaches a certain level, I'll use this chance to gain a foothold in this place. I've never shown any hostility towards Tranquil East tribe. I've already shown my goodwill towards them when I healed Feng Mu. I can use this blade to test Tranquil East tribe's reaction so that I can respond accordingly. Su Ming did not think of these things immediately. Before he Feng challenged the chains of Han Mountain, he saw the black bell on the old man's wrist. Then, he spent half a day to slowly figure out these things in his head as he witnessed what happened between He Feng and Xianlun. He still lacked experience. Otherwise, he would be able to understand these things with just a thought. But now, he needed time to make up for it. He couldn't be as experienced as a fox. For example, the matter of using Feng Mu as a guide. Although the second time he met him, the process seemed calm, his behavior was experienced, and he even used probing words and threatening words. His actions were calm and steady, and he didn't reveal too many flaws, and he was able to intimidate Feng Mu's father. It didn't seem like something a young man would do. Yet in truth, Su Ming had used a few months to think, analyze, and prepare for this. He had only managed to do it after he was 90% certain that he would succeed. This was also the reason why he had waited for Feng Mu to come to the rainforest multiple times and called out to him multiple times before he appeared. Otherwise, he could have shown up the first time Feng Mu summoned him after he left and returned. He wouldn't have had to wait a few months. It was the same now. He relied on time to make up for his lack of experience. Even if he had not run into He Feng challenging the chains of Han Mountain, Su Ming would still have left after observing the situation. Once he thought things through, he would come back. At that moment, he analyzed the matter once again in his head. Once he was certain that he did not miss anything, he left the third layer. When the sky darkened, he returned to his lodgings in the fourth layer of Han Mountain City. Su Ming sat down cross-legged in the room that was much more luxurious than the one in Windstream City and fell into deep thought. Ever since he came to the unfamiliar land of South Morning, he had unknowingly developed the habit of thinking often. The teachings the elder had given him over the years were gradually showing themselves at that moment. I still need to get in touch with Tranquil East tribe. I'm not mature enough yet. If I continue cultivating this path, it will eventually become one of my choices. But I can't just leave one path in Han Mountain City. I have to prepare other choices. Only then will I be at ease. Su Ming sat quietly in his room. Besides searching for a map to the alliance of the Western region, he also had to establish himself in this place as soon as possible so that he could find out whether the elder was here. Even if the chances of this happening were slim, even if the elder might have already died, Su Ming did not want to believe it. The map leading to the alliance of the Western region must contain most of the land of South Morning. This sort of map is definitely not an ordinary item, and it's not something a middle-sized tribe can have. This thing should be incredibly valuable, and it won't be easily seen by others. Su Ming sighed. If I want to complete all of this, I'll still have to survive, and I won't have to be like He Feng. I'll have to be like Xianlun and continue living as a powerful berserker. A barely noticeable glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. There are 5 powerful berserkers in the Transcendence realm in Han Mountain City. Xianlun is one of them, and he's also the chief guest of Puqiang tribe. By the looks of it, the other 4 berserkers in the Transcendence realm should belong to the 3 different tribes here. Besides them, there are also quite a number of berserkers in the blood solidification realm. Most of them aren't from the 3 tribes. There must be a reason for so many people to stay in Han Mountain City. Feng Mu once said that every time Freezing Sky Clan takes in new disciples, they will come to Han Mountain City. This might be tempting, but I have a feeling that there are some secrets hidden in Han Mountain City that attract powerful berserkers like Xianlun to stay for a long time. Su Ming touched his chin. There were some soft hairs on his chin. That was the first sign of adulthood left behind by a young man in the passage of time. With my current power, 243 blood veins, and the 7th level of the blood solidification realm, I can only be considered as in the middle of the blood solidification realm in Han Mountain City. With fine control, I can fight against those at the 8th level of the blood solidification realm. I can only be considered as at the peak of the middle stage of the blood solidification realm. Su Ming was silent, but there was a faint flash of the shadow of the moon in his eyes. But I have the souls of the wings of the moon. If I summon all the souls of the wings of the moon under the moonlight, just like when I was in Dark Mountain, I'll be heavily injured. Su Ming closed his eyes and hid away the shadow of the moon in his eyes. That's my trump card. Unless it's a matter of life and death, I won't use it. There's also that Han Fei Zi. That's a strange title. I heard from the people around me that only the 3 strongest disciples in the history of Freezing Sky Clan are given the title of Han Fei Zi. Su Ming thought about it for a moment before he stopped thinking about it. He would not waste his time on things that had nothing to do with him. Once his mind gradually calmed down, Su Ming immersed himself in meditation and circulated the qi in his body. Without knowing it, it was already late at night. It was quiet outside. The entire Han Mountain City seemed to have fallen asleep. At some unknown point in time, muffled sounds of thunder came from outside. It was soon followed by the sound of rain falling on the ground. No one could tell whether it came from the sky or from the ground. It was as if the sounds were intertwining with each other to form a curtain of rain. It was a rainy season. The downpour soon enveloped Han Mountain City. There was also the howling of the wind and rain. The rain fell on the windows of the rooms, causing the leather paper on the windows to let out flapping sounds. There were no candles in the room. It was dark, yet as the thunder roared, the room was illuminated by the occasional lightning. Su Ming opened his eyes. He got up and opened the window quietly. A gust of wind blew into his face and lifted his hair. He looked at the darkness and rain outside the window and stood there quietly, unmoving. I wonder what season it is now in Dark Mountain. 2 years sure pass by quickly. Su Ming mumbled. How's the tribe? Is the elder still alive? Su Ming felt bitter. He was alone in an unfamiliar place and felt very lonely. That loneliness made him learn how to protect himself with silence. He touched the scar on his face and stood there for a long, long time until his second night in Han Mountain City passed by. Early in the morning, it was still raining. There were not many people on the streets. The rain on the ground flowed down the mountain, making it slippery. Su Ming did not continue staying in Han Mountain City. He had already bought a lot of herbs he needed. Even if he still lacked some herbs to create spirit plunder and only managed to buy one of the 3 beast bones, the 3rd and 4th layers no longer had anything he needed, unless it was the 2nd layer. However, not only did this layer require a person's level of cultivation, he could only enter after he became a guest. After thinking about it for a moment, Su Ming gave up and left Han Mountain City. This was the first time he came to Han Mountain City in his life. There was nothing special about him. Nothing special about him. He might have caught some people's attention, but overall, he was like a small stone tossed into a lake. He would only cause a few ripples. When he came, the sky was bright, but when he left, the rain turned into a curtain. With his back turned towards Han Mountain City, Su Ming gradually disappeared into the distance. He did not stop. Instead, he increased his speed and charged towards the depths of the rainforest and the mountains in the rain. He did not intentionally search for the map of the land of South Morning during his trip to Han Mountain City. However, as he walked through the city, none of the shops sold this item. Through the conversations and information he heard, he slowly found out that the map of the surrounding area was only in the hands of the 3 tribes, and it was incredibly valuable. The road ahead of him was bleak and full of hardships. How was he supposed to become a powerful berserker from an ordinary person? Su Ming did not know where his future lay. He only knew that he had to continue moving forward calmly and increase his level of cultivation. Once he reached a certain level, the confusion before his eyes would be torn apart. He walked silently at a moderate pace. As he charged forward, he did not head straight for the rainforest. Instead, he spent a few days going around in circles. Once he was certain that no one was following him, he returned to the familiar depths of the rainforest, to the cave in the crack in the mountain range. The rain did not stop. It washed away his footprints and formed a natural barrier. When Su Ming returned to the cave in the crack a few days later, his entire body was drenched. Rainwater flowed down his hair. He walked into the cave and circulated his qi. Wisps of hot air spread through his entire body as if they had turned into fire. Very soon, a white mist rose from Su Ming's body. Gradually, his drenched clothes dried up, but there were a lot of wrinkles on them, making him look rather pathetic. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 125. As the white fog surrounded him, Su Ming swept his gaze across the cave, and he paid special attention to a few special spots. Before he left, he had placed some fine wild beast fur in those spots. These furs were very light and could be blown away by the slightest bit of wind. Based on how far they were blown away, Su Ming could vaguely tell how strong the wind was. Furthermore, he had set up some traps on the ground near the entrance. After observing for a while, he was sure that no one had come here during the time he had been gone. Fortunately, I have this. Otherwise, it would be very inconvenient. Su Ming rubbed his head. As the heat from his qi spread out, his hair was no longer wet. He brought out a small, damaged bag from his bosom and opened it. He poured out the herbs and materials he bought from Han Mountain City. Once Su Ming checked them one by one and was certain that they had not been reduced, he felt at ease. The dimension within the small bag was damaged, which was why even though Su Ming had used it frequently over the past 2 years, he still felt uneasy. Refining the spirit plunder powder should be the most important. Once this powder is refined, it should be of great help to me. In fact, when it's inconvenient to summon the spirits of the moon, I can use this as a trump card. But the requirements for creating this medicine are too high. The herbs are secondary. I found some of them in the 3rd layer of Han Mountain City, so I only need 3 more. But there's only one beast bone that's equivalent to the Transcendence realm. Su Ming picked up the black bone among the materials. The cold air coming from it was so strong that it felt cold in his hands. But even though it's the bones of powerful, ferocious beasts that are equivalent to those in the Transcendence realm, there's no time requirement. You don't have to personally kill those ferocious beasts to get their bones. If that's the case, then even though there aren't many of these bones, I should be able to buy them. Besides these, I also need to find a person who is about to die. That person might not have any requirements for their level of cultivation, but if the materials to create this pill are so hard to find, then it's clear that the higher the person's level of cultivation is, the better the quality of the spirit plunder will be. I wonder if I can find a person who is about to die in the Transcendence realm and create spirit plunder. Su Ming's eyes sparkled, but it soon turned into a sigh. He knew that he was thinking too much. It was impossible. As for refining this powder, we can't use fire. Instead, we need corpse qi to refine it. I've already figured out the source of this corpse qi. The Puqiang tribe cultivates the aura of death, so they must have stored a thick corpse aura for cultivation. Su Ming thought about it again and decided to put this matter aside. After all, there were still a lot of materials that he had yet to gather to create spirit plunder. He had to think about this at length. Now that my cultivation has recovered, I need to use the mountain spirit powder to increase my cultivation. Su Ming sucked in a deep breath. Even though it was raining outside, there was still waves of heat filling the cave. That heat came from Su Ming's right hand, which was slowly burning up in flames, and the herbs in his hand. As he concocted the pills, he silently consumed the mountain spirit powder, which he absorbed into his qi and blood. It circulated throughout his body, causing his blood veins to stabilize and slowly increase. Su Ming rarely ventured out once again in the depths of the rainforest. He spent all his time training as if he was in isolation. Time trickled by, and in the blink of an eye, half a month went by. During this half a month, Su Ming never stepped out of the cave. He had enough herbs to create mountain spirit. During this half a month, the number of blood veins in his body increased from 243 to 249. The speed of his training was neither fast nor slow, but it was steady. Every single time a few more blood veins appeared, Su Ming would stop for a moment and use his mind to control them until they were perfect before continuing. Because of that, even though the number of blood veins did not increase by much, Su Ming's power increased day by day. He was silent most of the time. At that moment, if the people from Dark Mountain Tribe saw him, they would fall into a daze, as if they would not be able to recognize him at first glance. Not only had his appearance changed, his presence was also different from before. It was a metamorphosis, a growth that was akin to nourishing a plant. There was a thin scar on his face that was parallel to his eyes. It was only the width of 2 fingers away from his eyes. The scar could have healed, but Su Ming did not want to. He would always touch the scar on his face and stare at the darkness in the dark cave. On this day, half a month later, Su Ming sat cross-legged in the cave and ate mountain spirit. As he circulated the qi in his body and absorbed it, a familiar voice traveled into his ears. "Senior, Senior." Su Ming did not bother with it immediately. After a few hours, when the sky outside darkened and moonlight appeared, he slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was calm as he stood up and put on the bee skin robes that covered his entire body before walking out slowly. In the depths of the rainforest, not too far away from where Fong Mu's call came from, the rain was still pouring, but it had lessened. It fell in a hazy manner, causing the entire area to be damp. Su Ming stood beside a big tree and swept his gaze across the area. This was the place he had chosen. The cautious Su Ming had only gone to Fong Mu on his own the first time he had taken the initiative to meet him. The other times, he had asked Fong Mu to come to a place he felt was safe. By doing so, he could provide some form of protection and avoid traps that might not even exist. Su Ming averted his gaze from the area and swung his right hand before him. Immediately, the invisible souls of the wings of the moon spread out and surrounded the area, causing the moonlight in the area to seem to have gathered a little more. "Fong Mu, come here." Once he was done, Su Ming spoke slowly. His voice was not loud, but it had a penetrating power that spread through the area. As he spoke, Su Ming stood there quietly, hidden in the darkness, unmoving. Before long, rustling sounds traveled forth. A person ran out from the rainforest. It was Fong Mu. He was already used to Su Ming's mysteriousness and habits. It was not difficult for him to find this place by following the sounds. Once he appeared, he panted harshly as he looked at Su Ming standing in the darkness. To him, Su Ming seemed to have fused with the darkness. He could only see his vague outline. "Greetings, Senior Mo." Fong Mu quickly wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed towards Su Ming. Once he did so, he took down the big bag he carried on his back and placed it by the side. He opened it to reveal the large amount of cloud gauze grass inside. Su Ming swept his gaze past the bag and lifted his right hand to press on the big tree beside him. The tree immediately trembled and part of its bark fell off. As Su Ming drew lines on the bark with his finger, the picture of 3 herbs was drawn on the tree. If you can find any of these 3 herbs, you can use any one of them to heal your wounds 3 times. If you can get all of them and pay a sufficient price, then I might be able to heal your wounds completely, Su Ming said slowly. Fong Mu's body froze. His expression did not change, but his heart instantly tensed up. This nervousness was not due to fear, but excitement. If it had been the first time he met Su Ming and he said this, he would definitely not have believed him. Yet now, in Fong Mu's heart, he believed most of Su Ming's words. Fong Mu fell silent for a moment before he forced a calm smile and said, "Senior, please don't play tricks on me. I know my wounds well. I was planted with a berserker art. Even my father and the elder can't get rid of it. They can only suppress it slowly. It's too difficult to get rid of it completely, unless you can find the person who harmed me in the past and kill him." Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he spoke flatly. "Come forward." Fong Mu's heart trembled once again. He walked towards Su Ming without any hesitation. The moment he got close to Su Ming, Su Ming immediately lifted his right hand and grabbed Fong Mu's shoulder. A cold chill traveled from his hand into Fong Mu's body. There was a chill in that chill that made Fong Mu's body tremble. Yet the moment that chill passed, it turned into a hint of heat that swam through his body as if it had a mind of its own. Before Fong Mu could sense it in detail, Su Ming had already lifted his hand. Fong Mu knew that this person had a strange fetish and did not want anyone to get close to him. He quickly took a few steps back and looked at Su Ming anxiously. "I'm not completely confident. I only have a 70% chance of success," Su Ming said in a low voice. 70%. Fong Mu took a deep breath, and a resolute look appeared on his face. He nodded his head and looked at the 3 herbs on the tree, committing their faces to memory. "Also, you need to find 2 beast bones. They must be the bones of ferocious beasts that are equivalent to those in the transcendence realm," Su Ming said unhurriedly. Fong Mu did not ask Su Ming about the uses of these materials. He only nodded his head and remembered them. When he saw that Su Ming was about to end the meeting once he finished speaking, a respectful look immediately appeared on his face, and he wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming. "Senior, before Fong Mu came here, my father told me to bring you something. I hope you'll accept it." As Fong Mu spoke, he brought out a black bell from his bosom and crushed it before Su Ming. A layer of fog surrounded the bell and dissipated in an instant, revealing a white wooden box. The wooden box looked very normal. Fong Mu handed it over with both hands. Fong Mu was also curious as to what was in the wooden box. His father had suddenly appeared and given this item to him when he was on his way here. He had asked him to give this item to Su Ming when he met him in the rainforest under the protection of a few of his tribe members. "Open it." Su Ming's gaze fell on the wooden box. He was surprised by the sight of the black bell shattering just now, but he did not show it. When Fong Mu heard Su Ming's words, he immediately opened the wooden box. Once he took a look, he was momentarily stunned. There was a bone blade in the wooden box. The bone blade exuded a chilling presence, and there was a faint red line on it. It was the item Su Ming had used to trade for in Han Mountain City. As he looked at the blade, Su Ming's expression remained the same. He lifted his right hand and seized the air. The bone blade flew up and landed in Su Ming's hand. "Thank your father for me when you go back." Su Ming took the bone blade that had returned to him and the bag of cloud gauze grass. Then, he floated backwards and disappeared into the darkness. Fong Mu was puzzled. He recognized the blade, but he could not understand why it would appear in his father's hands when he had given it to him before, and why did he ask him to deliver it to him again. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 126. The rainy season continued. After a few days, it was time for the rain to fall, and the rain gradually lessened. Usually, there would be a light drizzle, but it was as if the rain was unwilling to leave. Su Ming was already used to the humidity in this place. He was no longer as uncomfortable as he was when he first came here a few years ago. Fong Mu's father's act of returning the bone blade verified Su Ming's guess. It made him excited, and that excitement gave Su Ming confidence for the first time in this unfamiliar place. The moment he lured Fong Mu out, traded the blade for the item, and finally returned the blade. All of this seemed normal, but in truth, it was a manifestation of Su Ming's cunning. Step by step, he opened up his own force in this unfamiliar place. He had a short conversation with Fong Mu's father under the premise of guessing his level of cultivation. Su Ming had shown an appropriate amount of goodwill. Fong Mu's father returning the bone blade was a response to Su Ming's goodwill, and it was also a form of acknowledgement. The blade may not be expensive, but the meaning behind it was different. Su Ming put the blade away in his torn pocket and calmed down. He continued quenching his blood in the cave that belonged to him, increasing his power step by step as he stabilized it. A few months passed by in the blink of an eye. The number of blood veins in Su Ming's body had increased to 260. On this day, he sat cross-legged in the cave. His entire body shone with a blood-red light. 7 mist dragons came out of his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, and as they moved about, they circled above his head. Before long, the 7 fog dragons suddenly shuddered. No one knew what had happened, but their calmness was swept away, and they crumbled with a bang above Su Ming's head, turning into countless fine threads that spread out, causing Su Ming's eyes to fly open. Surprise and bewilderment flashed briefly in his eyes. He swiftly lifted his right hand and seized a large amount of fog threads that had spread out. Immediately, the fog threads stopped moving for a moment before they gathered together and gathered on Su Ming's right hand. They slowly fused into his palm and eventually disappeared without a trace. Su Ming's face was dark. He got up slowly, and with one move, he walked out of the cave and stood outside the entrance. The sky was already dark. The moon hung high in the sky, but there were thin clouds and smoke around, causing the land to look hazy under the moonlight. Su Ming stood there unmoving, but his expression became more serious. The qi in his body seemed to have gone out of control and was showing signs of reversing. His hair was also moving without wind, but it did not float backwards. Instead, it went past his ears and cheeks and floated forward. It was as if there was a strange object in the depths of the dark sky that had a suction force sucking in Su Ming's hair. The sand and stones on the ground that were stained by the puddles of water were now slowly moving under the ripples of the puddles. They made rustling sounds as they moved forward. Some of the rotten leaves suddenly floated up and curled up in a strange manner without any wind before rising into the sky. A brilliant glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He enveloped his entire body with fine control and forced down the restlessness of his qi. He stared at the sky in the distance with a solemn expression and a pensive look on his face. This is a berserker in the transcendence realm casting a berserker art. It shouldn't be too far away, or else I wouldn't be able to sense it so clearly from here. Just as Su Ming was thinking, a muffled rumble suddenly came from the sky in the distance. The rumbling sound was like thunder in the dark night, stirring up waves of echoes. Soon after, a long arc sliced through the sky and charged towards the endless forest behind the mountains and the rainforest from a spot that was further away from Su Ming. That direction was the true depths of the rainforest. Su Ming had gone there once before, but the humidity there was much greater compared to the outside world. There was no season there either, which was why it created a stench that would make anyone who smelled it feel nauseous and uneasy. If a person stayed there for a long period of time, they would find it hard to circulate their qi. There was poison in the air. That was why Su Ming only went there once before he immediately stopped. He no longer went in carelessly. There was a person in the long arc. The person's face could not be seen clearly, but the light from the long arc was dim. It was clear that the person had reached the end of his path. As he moved forward, he coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. A faint presence that seemed to belong to the transcendence realm spread out from the person's body. It was incredibly unstable, giving Su Ming the impression that the person was alternating between the peak of the blood solidification realm and the initial stage of the transcendence realm. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes, and he immediately turned cold. He was like a sharp sword that was about to be unsheathed. He lifted his right hand and swung it before him. Instantly, the soles of the wings of the moon spread out and covered the area. Almost at the same time, Su Ming did that. Another long arc charged towards him from the depths of the sky. That long arc seemed to be covered by a thick layer of fog. As it charged forward, there was a person standing in it. That person's face could not be seen clearly, but the monstrous killing intent exuded from him was not hidden at all. The moment he charged through the sky, the black fog under his feet tumbled about. That person lifted his right hand and was about to point towards Su Ming in the distance. His chase had not been smooth sailing. As he grew agitated, he ran into a few people on the way and killed them without hesitation. He took their qi to make the fog under his feet travel faster. In truth, this person had already noticed Su Ming's existence when he was in the cave. To him, killing a mere berserker at the 7th level of the blood solidification realm was as easy as crushing an ant. He did not even pay much attention to Su Ming before he pointed his finger at him. Yet right at the instant his finger was about to land on Su Ming, the expression of the person above the black fog changed. He could clearly sense that there was a presence around Su Ming, who was on a mountain range beneath him, that caused his heart to tremble in shock. Shocked, he did not want to cause unnecessary trouble. He let out a cold harumph and pulled his finger back. He focused all his attention on the person running before him and chased after him. Su Ming stood there with sweat beading on his forehead. His face was slightly pale, but his eyes were as calm as an ancient well. During that instant just now, if he had not reacted quickly and activated the souls of the wings of the moon to intimidate Su Ming, then that one finger from the person on the black fog would have caused him to suffer an unexpected disaster. He might not have lost his life, but it would have still been troublesome. He's Xianluan. Su Ming took a deep breath and his eyes sparkled. He originally could not recognize the person, but he was familiar with that cold harumph. Xianluan had left a deep impression on him when he was in Han Mountain City, and he remembered it in his heart. There's a high chance that the person he's chasing is Feng. Su Ming fell silent. His gaze fell on the deeper parts of the rainforest in the distance. He could clearly see the distance between the two long arcs closing in on each other. Soon, loud booming sounds rang out. It was clear that the two of them were engaged in a battle to the death. Feng has reached a breakthrough. When I first saw him, he was taken away by Han Fei Zi. I didn't expect to see him here. He's not only being chased by Xianluan, he's also reached a breakthrough. No wonder Xianluan could chase him all the way here. If Feng hadn't reached a breakthrough, then he would have died along the way. Su Ming's face was dark. This matter originally had nothing to do with him, but the place the two people were chasing was the rainforest. Judging by Xianluan's domineering actions, if Su Ming had not reacted quickly, he would have been dragged into the fight. Oh well, I can't stay here any longer. Huh? Su Ming sighed and quickly returned to the cave. He immediately put away all his items into the torn bag and rushed out of the cave, running towards the rainforest at the foot of the mountain. Even if Feng has reached a breakthrough, by the looks of it, he's still not Xianluan's opponent. Once Xianluan kills this person and leaves, it'll be fine, but if he comes back and causes trouble for me, I can't gamble on this. Su Ming made his decision. He ran through the rainforest, deciding to head to Tranquil East Tribe early. Even if this messes up my plans, Su Ming was feeling rather gloomy. This had nothing to do with him, but he was dragged into it. The rainforest was a natural barrier, and there were a lot of herbs in it. It was difficult for Su Ming to not want to leave. Once I avoid this, perhaps I can come back. As Su Ming ran, he immediately suppressed the thought in his head. Su Ming had gained some understanding of Xianluan's personality after what happened just now. He knew that Xianluan was a temperamental person. As he ran, booming sounds echoed behind Su Ming. There were also faint, shrill cries that filled the air. This is a little strange. This rainforest is so big, and there are so many places I can go to. Why did Feng come here? I hope it's just a coincidence. A cold glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. If it's not a coincidence, then Feng must have intentionally lured Xianluan here. Could it be that there's something here that's beneficial to him? Su Ming could not understand it, no matter how much he thought about it. He increased his speed, wanting to leave this troublesome place. Yet at that moment, as booming sounds echoed in the depths of the rainforest behind him, an anxious voice spoke abruptly. That voice was clearly transmitted through a unique berserker art. It had a penetrating power that could travel a long distance, and it was enough for Su Ming, who was far away from the battlefield, to hear it. I'll hold Xianluan back. Brother Su Go, I'll return the favor to you by hiding the item. That voice echoed in the air and enveloped the entire area, but did not travel too far. Instead, it was directed at the spot where Su Ming was running. Child's play. When Xianluan, who was fighting against Feng in the depths of the rainforest, heard those words, a glint appeared in his eyes. He laughed coldly and continued attacking, but he lifted his right index finger and pointed at Su Ming, who was far away. The moment he pointed, the black fog around him instantly twisted and turned into a ferocious face of a malicious spirit. It charged towards Su Ming with a roar and flew rapidly. As Su Ming ran, killing intent appeared in his eyes. By then, he had already come to a realization. He Feng's viciousness was forcing Su Ming to help him. Or else, even if he left, it would be difficult for him to escape. There were too many loopholes in his words, but Su Ming knew that He Feng was not afraid of those loopholes. He just wanted Xianluan to hear it. That way, even if Xianluan knew that there was a 90% chance that it was fake, he would still be suspicious and come after him. Despicable. Su Ming clenched his fists. Ever since he came to this unfamiliar place, everything had been going rather smoothly. Even if he was still cautious and alert, there was still a large gap between him and the cunning berserkers. Su Ming turned his head around. Behind him, a piercing howl could be heard. The face of the malicious spirit that was formed by the black fog closed in on him. It was less than 1,000 feet away from him. To be continued. If you like this work, please come at Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 127. He Feng is such a sinister person, but why was he so certain that I would be of help to him? More accurately speaking, I've only met him once, and it was in the winery that night. And how did he know that I was in the rainforest? Once he ran here, he predicted Xianluan's personality. He would definitely lure me out. He must have also predicted that I wouldn't participate in this. I would either choose to not do anything or leave. That's why he said those words when he noticed that I wanted to stay away from this matter. It's not impossible to say that these are just coincidences, but these coincidences are a little too real. He wants to use me to divert Xianluan's attention. He's certain that I can fight against him, and he knows that I only have two choices. One is to kill the ghost face form from the black fog, and then, to protect myself and avoid future troubles, I will attack and fight against Xianluan together with him. Even if I help Xianluan to show my will, He Feng will definitely have other tricks up his sleeve, and he will achieve his ruthless goal. The second choice was to fight against the face of the ghost and leave in a hurry once again. If I did that, then it would prove his previous words true. It would cause me great trouble and distract Xianluan once again. He Feng might even have a way to change Xianluan's mind and make him come after me. Besides, He Feng's sudden appearance in the rainforest caught me off guard. When Xianluan attacked, I released the mighty pressure of the wings of the moon to intimidate him. Even though I managed to avoid that finger, I pushed myself into He Feng's sinister attack. Because of that, even if I pretended to be dead, Xianluan would not believe me. This is a dead end. He Feng, I have no grudge against you, but you harmed me to protect yourself. No wonder the elder told me so many times that humans are evil. This was the first time Su Ming understood this deeply. He originally thought that as long as he did not show any hostility, he could avoid certain things and be safe. Yet now, He Feng had used his actions to tell Su Ming that sometimes, even if he did not show any hostility, even if they were strangers, he could still die due to other reasons. Compared to He Feng, Su Ming was still too inexperienced. He may be a little scheming, but he had only experienced the devastation of his tribe and Shan Hen's betrayal. He had never experienced the evil of humans. In truth, before this incident, Su Ming had pitted He Feng. All of this is because I'm too weak. If I became a powerful martial artist, then He Feng would not have dared to use me in such a sinister manner. These thoughts flashed in Su Ming's mind at the instant the face of the malicious spirit in the black fog closed in on him. During this critical moment, Su Ming was forced to use all his thoughts. This had nothing to do with his level of cultivation. If he wanted to solve this situation, he needed his reflexes. If we fight, we won't be able to win. We'll be used. If I run, I won't be able to run. I'll be chased down. If I lose, unless I really die, no one will believe me. He Feng, since you've sealed off these three paths, then let me, Su Ming, open the fourth path. Su Ming's eyes sparkled. Almost at the instant the face of the ghost in the black fog closed in on him, he lifted his right hand, and the bone blade appeared in his hand. He did not retreat. Instead, he took a step forward. The moment his foot landed, the moon in the sky grew brighter. Moonlight filled Su Ming's entire body and turned into flames, causing Su Ming to feel as if his entire body was burning as he moved forward, turning into a sea of fire. The blade charged towards the face of the malicious spirit in the black fog. The moment the blade landed, the souls of the wings of the moon appeared around Su Ming's body and enveloped him, causing him to step into the air. No one could see that there were souls of the wings of the moon under Su Ming's feet. There were also a large amount of souls of the wings of the moon around him. His blade crashed into the face of the malicious spirit in the black fog. With a bang, Su Ming coughed out blood and staggered backwards. The bone blade in his hand shattered and turned into a large amount of shards that scattered everywhere. The souls of the wings of the moon around him trembled, but they did not disappear. Instead, they gathered around Su Ming once again. When Su Ming coughed out blood and retreated, the face of the malicious spirit in the fog let out a piercing screech. As if it was torn apart by a violent gust of wind, it turned into wisps of fog and dissipated. "Brother Yifeng, leave quickly. I was ashamed before, but now that I've been enlightened, I'll hold Xianlun back for you, even if I have to risk my life." As Su Ming spoke, he charged forward. The wings of the moon surrounded him as he charged towards the battle in the deeper parts of the rainforest. When Yifeng, who was fighting against Xianlun, heard Su Ming's words, he frowned, but he did not have time to think. Xianlun laughed coldly and cast some unknown method, causing half of the black fog around him to split up and charge towards Su Ming. That half of the fog let out a piercing howl and turned into countless strands of fog that looked like the hair of a dead person in midair. They surrounded Su Ming as if they were trying to strangle him. The strands of fog were like dense raindrops, and since the sky was dark, it was difficult for anyone to see them clearly. They could only see the countless strands of fog entangling with each other and enveloping the sky and earth. With a swift contraction, they enveloped Su Ming within. Its appearance was somewhat similar to Bai Tu's verdant berserker chains. Booming sounds instantly reverberated in the air. The large amount of strands of fog shrank abruptly and completely enveloped Su Ming's body. As they continued gathering together, they turned into something that looked like a ball of hair. That ball of hair was several dozens of feet in size. There were countless strands of threads surrounding it and sealing it tightly, not revealing a single thing within. Only a faint, piercing scream of pain could be heard coming from within. That voice belonged to Su Ming. Blood dripped down from the bottom of the ball of hair. There may not be a lot of it, but it was still a terrifying sight. That scene shocked Yifeng, and he quickly retreated. Xianlun closed in on him with a cold sneer on his face. He lifted his right hand and pointed towards the ball of hair. "It doesn't matter whether he's your companion or not. Now that he's under my hair's flow like silk, he's still..." Before Xianlun could finish speaking, the ball of hair floating in the air gradually dissipated as he pointed towards it. Yet what made Xianlun stunned was that once the ball of hair dissipated, Su Ming was not inside. It was empty. There was only a small amount of blood that dripped down as the ball of hair dissipated. Even Yifeng was taken aback. Right before their eyes, Su Ming disappeared without a trace. They did not notice him at all. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. It was clear that he had used a unique method to leave the place. Due to it being too sudden, it caused the battlefield to fall into silence. Yifeng's expression immediately changed. He lost his judgment, but soon after, an enigmatic smile appeared on his face. He moved and was just about to escape when Xianlun flew into a rage. He turned around and charged towards Yifeng. Booming sounds reverberated in the air. After a long while, a shrill scream traveled forth. Yifeng coughed out blood, and his entire body was covered in blood mist. His face was pale, and he looked as if he was about to die. He fell to the ground with a bang, and the moment he landed, his entire body suddenly shone with a bright light. That light was so bright that it made Xianlun's pupils shrink as he chased after him with killing intent. At that moment, Yifeng looked as if his qi and blood were burning in the strong light. He rushed out and turned into a blazing sun that shone continuously in the dark night. His speed increased exponentially, and with a speed that made even Xianluan's heart tremble, he charged into the distance. Xianluan's expression changed. He lifted his right hand and tapped a few spots on his body before he chased after Yifeng. Very soon, the two of them turned into two long arcs that left the horizon. They sped up and disappeared into the distance. Time passed by slowly. An hour later, in the midst of the silence, a hand stretched out from a clump of mud in the rainforest that was filled with miasma. That hand was withered and looked like a dead person's claw. As it struggled, a person appeared. That person had no hair. His face was completely sunken in, making him look like a skeleton. His eyes were dull, and once he struggled out of the mud, he started panting as if he had used all his strength. As he panted, blood flowed continuously from the corners of his mouth. That blood was black and gave off a foul stench. Xianluan, you didn't expect that Yifeng, would have a backup plan. I've made ample preparations to hunt you down. I might have wasted a substitute puppet that even Han Feizi didn't know about and sacrificed a large amount of my blood and life. But as long as I'm still alive, it's enough. You will definitely die in my hands. Father, mother, and my people, I will take revenge for all of you. The withered person was Yifeng. He was not dead. It's a pity that the mysterious young man used some unknown method to escape this place, or else my plan would have been even more perfect, and I wouldn't have to make myself so weak right now. I need to recover as soon as possible. With the speed of my puppet, Xianluan will need a few days to catch up to me. I won't have enough time to wait for him to notice the abnormality before he returns. But I've also benefited from this disaster. I managed to break through the blood solidification realm. The method Han Feizi mentioned was indeed effective. If I didn't chase after the greatest number of blood veins and didn't ask for more than 950 veins, then when I'm in danger and am forced into a corner, I would have a chance of successfully transcending. Now, as long as my cultivation base recovers slightly, I will become a powerful berserker in the Transcendence realm, and I will be able to draw my own berserker mark. With Han Feizi's help, I will finally have the right to become an outer member of the 16 Dark Spirits. Yifeng sucked in a deep breath. He could not move his body much at that moment, and he was practically at his weakest. If it was not because his recovery rate was incredibly slow in the mud, and he was worried that Xianluan would rush back and notice him, he would not have struggled out of the mud. At that moment, he could only lie down and slowly heal his wounds. I need 3 days. Yifeng lifted his right hand with great difficulty and slowly reached into his bosom. A light shone from his bosom, and he brought out a small bottle. That bottle was completely white, and it looked almost transparent. One could vaguely see some liquid inside. Just as he was about to use his teeth to bite off the cork of the bottle, Yifeng's body suddenly froze, and as if he had been frozen, he did not move. All the hairs on his body stood up. A strong sense of danger descended upon him. And the thing that brought about that sense of danger and made him panic was a voice that was as cold as the freezing wind. Yifeng, I'm here to take the item you promised me as a form of repayment. As Yifeng's heart trembled, he saw a person walking slowly towards him from the rainforest, not too far away. That person exuded a chilling aura, as if he was ice that would never melt. As he arrived, a mighty pressure spread out. It was Su Ming. I know I'm not doing well with my updates, and I've been too embarrassed to ask for monthly votes. It's almost the middle of the month, and I've been brewing in my ears for a while now. I might as well ask for monthly votes to boost my spirits. Well, I don't want too many monthly votes as long as it's within 50, or else I'll be too embarrassed and ashamed, and I'll risk it all again. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 128. Due to the dampness and decay that had settled in the depths of the rainforest, a miasma was formed. When that miasma entered a person's body, it would cause them to feel weak and powerless. In fact, if a long period of time passed, it would cause the qi in their bodies to lose its liveliness and gradually dissipate, making them drowsy. That was why most of the people in the tribes would only search for materials at the periphery of the rainforest. Very few of them would venture deeper into the rainforest. Only those who were powerful enough could circulate their chi at all times to neutralize the poison of the miasma. At that moment, as the invisible miasma filled the depths of the rainforest, Hifeng remained unmoving. His pupils shrank. He was incredibly weak and did not have any strength to fight back. After all, Xianluan was a powerful berserker in the Transcendence realm, and he was naturally intelligent as well. If Hifeng wanted to deceive him, then he would have to pay a real price. Only when he was completely exhausted could he make Xianluan relax slightly, and only then would he succeed. When he saw Su Ming suddenly appear, Hifeng was shocked. However, he was not a normal person. When he was young, his tribe had gone through a great change, and he had barely escaped death. After that, he had gone through all sorts of things and had long since trained himself to be a schemer. He might be nervous, but he recovered almost instantly. Even if someone took a closer look at his expression, it would be difficult to notice any changes. "Brother, you must be joking. I did it because I had no other choice." "Huh?" Hifeng looked at Su Ming walking towards him and laughed bitterly. As he spoke, he saw Su Ming closing in on him without stopping. Hifeng's heart let out a thump, but his expression remained the same. There was only bitterness and sadness on his face. "I know that no matter how I explain myself, you won't forgive me so easily. But before you kill me, could you listen to my explanation? In the beginning, I didn't know Xianluan. I only became good friends with his follower when we ran into each other by chance. I invited him back to the tribe, but I didn't expect that I would bring disaster upon myself. Xianluan appeared and killed my parents, my younger sister, and my entire tribe. I cannot live under the same sky as him. I can't die. Brother, I did it because I had no other choice. I have a blood feud on my shoulders. My life doesn't belong to me. Within my body are all the deceased souls of the tribe. They're with me, waiting for me to take revenge for them. Brother, I know that my previous actions were despicable, but I had no choice. If there was a way to resolve this, I wouldn't have dragged you down with me for no reason." Hifeng smiled bitterly. His expression was filled with sorrow and hatred towards Xianluan. Su Ming stood several dozens of feet away from Hifeng. He circulated the qi in his body and looked at the person calmly. The first time he saw Hifeng was in a wine shop. His clothes had caught his attention, and the familiarity that made him feel that he was far away from home turned into a hint of fondness. The second time they met was in the third layer of Han Mountain City. He saw this person challenge the chains of Han Mountain, saw his resolution and determination, and also saw Xianluan crushing the souls of this person's parents, his grief, and the mouthful of blood he coughed out. At that time, Su Ming might not have shown any sympathy in his eyes, but in his heart there was sympathy hidden within him. However, he would not show it easily. The third time they met would be today. When Yifeng saw that Su Ming was silent, but was still circulating the qi in his body, hundreds of thoughts raced through Yifeng's head. He still held the small bottle used for healing injuries in his hand, but he did not dare drink it, afraid that it would cause a reaction. He continued, smiling bitterly, and suddenly let go of his right hand. The small bottle used for healing injuries fell on the mud by his side, but did not sink into it. "Brother, I was wrong in this matter. I have some medicine for healing injuries in this bottle. I'll give it to you. As for me," Yifeng took a deep breath and struggled to lift his head to look at the sky in the distance. "Over there, 500 kilometers away, is the direction of my tribe. But now it has been reduced to ruins. Brother, I don't know your name, but I beg of you one thing. If you insist on killing me to vent your anger, then bury me there after I die. You could take all of my belongings as compensation for what I did wrong. If you forgive my mistake this time and give me a chance to take revenge on Xianlun, then I, Yifeng, am willing to sign the Treaty of Alliance of South Morning and become your follower. My life is in your hands. Brother, please make your decision." In Yifeng's anguish, there was a reluctance to part and regret in his eyes. He closed his eyes, as if he was waiting for the answer he did not know. However, qi was gathering within his body during this period of time, and he was using a special method that made it difficult for others to notice. The speed at which his chi was gathering became faster, and there was a hint of killing intent in his closed eyes that no one could see. This person may be mysterious and looks like he's in his 20s, but he's too immature. This person might be mysterious and looks like he's in his 20s, but he's too immature, and I managed to buy him some time with just a few words. If I had immediately attacked when he appeared, I definitely wouldn't have had the chance to fight back and would have been killed. But now, this person isn't too scheming, so perhaps I can continue to use him. Hifeng closed his eyes, but the thoughts in his head never stopped as he laughed coldly in his heart. How did you know that I was here, and how did you determine that I would be of help to you in your battle against Xianlun? Su Ming looked at Hifeng, who had his eyes closed, and asked flatly. Hifeng laughed coldly in his heart once again. He felt that Su Ming was not only immature, but also pitiful and pitiful. He was moved by his words. That was why he took the initiative to ask questions and gave Hifeng another chance to gather his strength. This person is very similar to me from many years ago. It's a pity. If he didn't appear, then it would have been fine. But since he appeared before me, then he won't have a chance to leave this place alive. If he dies, then it'll make it easier for me to carry out my next plan and make Xianlun hesitate. When Hifeng opened his eyes, they were filled with sincerity. There was not a hint of hypocrisy within them. Instead, there was the usual anguish within them. The tribe I'm in is a small one. Most of the tribe members wear beast skins. We can't compare to middle-sized tribes, much less Han Mountain City. I've always been envious of the people in middle-sized tribes since I was young. I'm envious that they don't need to wear beast skins. I'm envious that they have fake berserker vessels, Hifeng mumbled softly. But I'm only envious. I'm not jealous. I'm determined. I want my tribe to become stronger. I want to make myself stronger. There's a unique art in my tribe. With that art, I thought I could become a guest in some middle-sized tribes and slowly make my tribe stronger. This art doesn't have a name. It doesn't seem to belong to the berserker tribe. The inheritance of this art is also vague. The people in the tribe don't know where this art came from. Its use is to not rely on chi, but on a faint feeling to tell whether a person is strong or weak. This feeling is like a memory. If I remember it with my heart, then I can turn it into a brand. As long as the other person is not too far away from me, I can feel it vaguely. It's also because of this art that I've been able to avoid Xianlun's attempts to kill me over the years. That day in the winery, we were the only ones drinking in the middle of the night. At that time, I noticed you. You might seem to be at the 7th level of the blood solidification realm, but when I used this art to sense you, I could feel a terrifying presence that was equivalent to that of transcendence. However, when I used this art to sense you, I sensed a terrifying presence that was equivalent to that of a berserker in the transcendence realm. At that time, I knew that if you didn't have a priceless treasure on you, then you must have hidden your power. That was why I left a spiritual brand on you. That brand is very strange. It's very different from the art of the berserker tribe. That's why you didn't notice it. When I was being chased by Xianlun, I came here based on that feeling. I wanted to ask for your protection. This art might seem weak, but it's actually very useful. I can tell that you're not from any of the tribes around here. I have a wooden slip in my bosom for this art. You can take it and see whether I'm lying. Hifeng was not speaking slowly. He was a very calculative person. Even if he wanted to stall for time, he would not reveal any flaws in his words. Instead, he would use the anguished look on his face to make it seem as if he was reminiscing about something and say something that would make others feel pity for him. To stall for time, Hifeng could be said to have moved Su Ming's emotions and interests. He would become Su Ming's follower, give him all his belongings, and hand over the strange art. He did not believe that Su Ming would not be tempted. Brother, do you have any other questions? If I know anything, I will definitely tell you. Hifeng's face was filled with sincerity as he looked at Su Ming and spoke weakly. But in truth, the speck of light that was gathering in his body was becoming stronger. He was confident that he could kill Su Ming with one strike because he saw Su Ming disappear under Xianlun's attack. He originally thought that Su Ming had escaped, but he did not expect that he would still be here. From this, he could tell that Su Ming was not hiding his power. He had a powerful, enchanted vessel, and his body was only at the 7th level of the blood solidification realm. If they were far away, Hefeng would have hesitated. However, at such a close distance, he was confident that he could kill the other party before the other party activated that magical tool. Of course, the prerequisite was that this immature and naive person in front of him had to lower his guard. This person will probably ask me why Qianluan chased after me so many times. After all, the difference between me and Qianluan is too great. No matter who it is, they'll be able to see some clues. Even if he doesn't ask this question, he'll probably ask me about my relationship with Han Fei Zi. When Han Fei Zi saved me that day, this person was watching from below. Hefeng had already thought of his answer and plan. He was just waiting for Su Ming to ask. He would choose to say something that would make Su Ming lower his guard when he answered, then seize the chance to attack. I have one last question. Su Ming looked at Hefeng and stopped speaking. Hefeng's expression remained the same, but his heart was filled with anxiety once again. Are you ready to counterattack? When the flat words fell into Hefeng's ears, it made his heart tremble, but his expression turned into one of confusion, as if he did not understand Su Ming's words. The moment that confusion appeared on his face, Hefeng suddenly widened his eyes. His gaze seemed to have pierced through Su Ming, who was several dozens of feet away from him, to look at the sky behind him. Shock appeared on his face, and his body trembled. Qianluan. The moment he said those words, Hefeng opened his mouth, and a ray of dark light flew out from his mouth. That dark light flashed, and in the blink of an eye, it charged towards Su Ming. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Yet the moment he was about to self-destruct, Hefeng's expression changed drastically. This change was something that he had never shown before Su Ming. This change meant that his beliefs had crumbled, and his words came to an abrupt halt. This, how could this be? Hefeng's face was stark pale. He looked like a person who was about to commit suicide, but suddenly realized that the saber in his hand had turned into a piece of soft cloth. He noticed that not only had the qi and blood in his body become dull, they had also lost their liveliness. They were like a pool of stagnant water, and he could not make them break down and explode. Su Ming crouched down and looked at Hefeng, who was lying on the ground with a dazed look on his face. He sighed. When it comes to intelligence, I can't compare to you. You've been scheming against me since the first time we met. Yet in the end, you still missed out on something. It's the miasma in the rainforest. I asked you to stall for time because I was worried that if I pushed you too hard, you would choose to self-destruct. If that happened, I wouldn't be able to get anything. The more you talk about this miasma, the more thoughts you have in your head, the faster your heart beats, the quicker your breathing will become, and the more miasma you'll breathe in. If you circulated your qi in a large area, then it would be fine. You would be able to negate the miasma that you might have overlooked when you were at the peak of your condition. In fact, even if you were healing yourself here, since your qi was also circulating in a large area, you wouldn't be injured by the miasma. But you didn't dare do this before. You were cautious. Even if you gathered that dark light to counterattack, you still sucked in too much miasma. The miasma's effect is to make your qi lose its liveliness, making it difficult for you to self-destruct. Su Ming looked at Hefeng and spoke slowly. Right from the start, he had been circulating his qi in his body. Hefeng had noticed this a long time ago and thought that Su Ming was being cautious. He did not expect that it was actually because of the miasma. Hefeng smiled wryly. This time his smile was genuine. He looked at Su Ming. His vision became blurry, but he forced himself not to faint. As he looked at Su Ming, he seemed to see his past self, but it was clear that the young man before him was much calmer than he was. I have no grudge against Feng Luan for dying in your hands. It's a pity that I can't take revenge for my blood debt. I don't know your name, so I'll just call you Brother Su. Brother Su. Hefeng's breathing quickened. His resolute will was starting to fade away. He struggled and bit the tip of his tongue, forcing himself to stay awake once again. Brother Su, please help me kill Xianluan. Bring his head back to my tribe and offer it to the souls of the dead. I'll agree to all your conditions. You want me, who's about to die, to be made into a puppet. If I'm willing to do this, it'll be even more beneficial to you. If you promise to help me kill Xianluan, then He Feng, will willingly let you do whatever you want of me. I'm not asking you to kill him now. I just want you to help me fulfill my wish once your power is high enough. He Feng's breathing quickened. As he panted, he looked at Su Ming expectantly. Besides, I won't let you do this for nothing. I have a great treasure to give you. Xianluan destroyed my tribe and chased after me, and that Han Fei Zi saved me. Because of this treasure, I hid this treasure in a secret place. I didn't dare keep it on me. Besides, since my tribe specializes in the branding art, even Han Fei Zi would have a hard time using her berserker art to read my memories. Besides, she and Xianluan didn't want more people to know about it. In this world, only I know where that secret place is. That's why I can move about freely. Since I wasn't strong enough, then one of them showed kindness to me, and the other chased after me. They thought they could control me, but they underestimated me and He Feng. I could tell a long time ago that the two of them were not as they seemed. They were working together and pretending to be mysterious, but there was also conflict and suspicion between them. They hid the truth from each other, which gave me a chance. I only needed to challenge the chains of Han Mountain once to see through their relationship with just one glance. That act was too fake. Behind them were Lake of Colors tribe and Puqiang tribe. Did these two former slave tribes think that Feng and I were stupid? They schemed against me, and I was also using them. If it wasn't for the fact that I needed Han Fei Zi's help to enter the group of 16 Dark Souls and become an outer member, I would have been able to obtain even more benefits in Han Mountain City. He Feng's vision was already clouded. These words had been hidden in his heart for a long time. Today, when he was in despair, it was as if he had been freed. As his head dizzy, he told Su Ming everything. Brother Su, the tribe I belong to with Feng is a small one. There are less than 200 people in our tribe, but very few people know that my tribe is a hidden branch of Han Mountain tribe that occupied Han Mountain City hundreds of years ago. Han Mountain tribe was destroyed by the 3 slave tribes, but we survived. But now, I'm the only one left. In the legends of Han Mountain tribe, the ancestor of Han Mountain tribe wasn't a berserker. His identity was a mystery. He settled down here, and thousands of years later, he formed Han Mountain tribe. That's why I have an art that allows me to detect your presence, which is different from berserker arts. This is an art left behind by our ancestor. He also left behind a few great treasures for his descendants, but 3 of them were snatched away by the 3 slave tribes in the past. The last one is the great treasure I spoke of. Su Ming looked at He Feng, who was still speaking in a jumbled manner. As he listened to his words, he gradually uncovered the mystery surrounding Han Mountain City. Han Mountain City belongs to Han Mountain tribe. It was built by our ancestor and created by our tribe. In the canyons under the chains of Han Mountain is a place that the 3 slave tribes desire to enter. That is the place where our ancestor passed away. He Feng mumbled. As he looked at Su Ming, the anticipation in his eyes became stronger. I don't hate the 3 slave tribes. The survival of the tribe is decided by the law of the jungle. I don't hate Han Fei Zi either. Her goal may be to obtain the great treasure, but she treated me with courtesy. I originally planned to give this to her if I really couldn't do it. The only person I hate is Xianluan. He killed my family and slaughtered my tribe. Kill him. Promise me. Help him. Kill him. Su Ming fell silent for a moment. He did not need a dying person's will to create spirit plunder. In fact, if there was resentment, then the effects would be even better. Yet at that moment, Su Ming looked at He Feng and nodded. If I have enough power to kill him, then I promise you, I will take revenge for you. Brother Su, thank you. He Feng closed his eyes and mumbled something that only Su Ming could hear. That sentence told Su Ming where He Feng hid the treasure. I have one more thing in my bosom. There were originally 3 of them, but Xianluan stole one of them. I gave one to Han Fei Zi, and the last one is yours. As He Feng spoke, he fell unconscious and did not move. Su Ming picked up He Feng's body and picked up the small bottle on the ground. He did not stay there for long and rushed into the distance. He did not leave the rainforest, but instead headed deeper into the forest and disappeared without a trace. In his mind, compared to any other place outside, the vast rainforest was perhaps a safer place. It was also the place where Xianluan would check the most carefully when he returned, but also the place that was the easiest to overlook. Su Ming moved about in the rainforest with a complicated look on his face. He Feng was a very calculative person. Su Ming could tell, just from his words, that there was such a secret within Han Mountain City. It also proved Su Ming's previous guesses as to why the powerful berserkers always gathered in Han Mountain City and why the 3 tribes took and guessed for a long period of time. He Feng. Su Ming sighed. This person's schemes left Su Ming with no other choice. He could only walk according to the path he had planned for him. If Su Ming had not thought of several ways to enter the dimension in the Black Stone when he was in danger, then his current situation would have been difficult to predict. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.